Hello. Do not adjust your streaming device. You're having a crisis. It is I, Krisis, spelled with a K, coming to you live from New Zealand, and we're almost into pre-dawn hours with me coming to you here from New Zealand on a Monday, but I know for many of you it's a Sunday. We're here with the pull list, and we have some catching up to do, or at least I do, because I have not read any comics beyond April 30th of 2025, and you're all possibly 4 or 5 release weeks ahead of me, so we've got some catching up to do, and that's going to start today. But before the greetings, before the comics, we're going to talk about my top comic series of 2025 so far up to April 30th. So let's do that, and then we'll say some hello, hello, hello. So these are my 2025 comic book series power rankings. Here we go. So, at number 12, still hanging on with a claws, Eddie Brock Carnage. I'll talk about why in a little bit later, not that I had an issue out this week. Then we have Ghostbox, which concluded from Comixology. I love this book. I think it totally nailed the ending. That's on the list today. Then, in a surprise twist, although we've seen it in the top 12 a few times so far, I have back in the top 12 Batman in Detective Comics, because this annual by Al Ewing was amazing. Another one we're going to talk about today. From there on in, you've kind of seen this list before, but I'm happy to advertise what my favorite comics are to you, which is Jump Scare from Cullen Bunn, Danny Luckert, and Jim Campbell, Doctor Strange of Asgard, which I just find so pleasing, Solomon Kane, which if you watched my last episode, I totally freaked out about how amazing it is, by Patrick Zurcher, The Tin Can Society from Giant Generator, written by Peter Warren, art by Francesco Mobley, with colors by Chris Chuckery, Absolute Superman, Jason Aaron doing Hope Corps, Nice House by the Sea, which is my entire personality, as we have discovered, The Avengers by Jed McKay, often with art. Of course, the best Batman book on the stage stands, and still at number 1, and I don't foresee it really going anywhere, is FML by Kelly Sue DeConnick, David Lopez, Chris Peter, and Clayton Cowles. So that is my top 12 series of the year, but wait, we're not done. We're not done, because now we have to talk about my picks of the week of April 30th, a few weeks ago. So to remind everybody how this works, I do a preview of all of the comics that are out for every week on Crushing Crisis, although that's also being caught up on now that our polling season is over. And then to go with that preview, I pick my top pick of the week. But then when I do my actual reading, does the pick turn out to be the same? So for DC Comics, I picked Detective Comics because I thought Al Ewing doing a Detective Comics story, that should be pretty interesting. And spoilers, that actually was the one that I went. You know, I never looked at your comics to make sure you can hear me, but we're just going to go ahead and assume that you can. Okay, then my Marvel pick of the week. I'm not loving much of Marvel's line right now. So I saw this beautiful cover with some X-Men on it, or at least one X-Men, and I thought, hey, it's going to be Doom Division. I did like that comic a lot. It was almost in my top 12, but just on page for page sheer joy, I really loved Doom Academy. That was my choice. For Image, I thought my pick of the week would be We're Taking Everyone Down With Us, which unfortunately you've got to hang all the way to the end of the alphabet to hear me talk about today, because I loved it, but just a fraction, a hair more. I loved Lost Fantasy #1. Kurt Pierce is Kraft's perfect #1s as far as I'm concerned. I don't always love his whole series, but it's really hard for me not to be in love with the Kurt Pierce #1. And then my indie pick of the week was Ghostbox, which we've established that I love from Comixology, and surprise, Ghostbox was in fact my indie pick of the week. So it's wonderful to be back with all of you, back in my normal time slot. I'm hoping to get back into the habit. You know, I'm learning things. In prior years, I would fall off in like April and May, and then we get to June and I would just go into hiding like some kind of hedgehog or groundhog. And this year, nope, it's June and I'm back doing the work. But we've learned from future years we should just plan ahead that there's going to be a hiatus in April and May. Okay, so let's just say hello to some people to remind you how this works. We do some hellos because we're very grateful, we being me, that there are people watching the show and interacting on their Sunday afternoon or Monday morning. Then we're going to do a moment of crisis where I talk about something that comes on the top of my head. I have about 3 that are ping-ponging around like a pinball machine in there, so we'll see which one wins out. And then we will actually talk about the comics of the week. So Superjob got in first with the first comment today. Comment. Oh, drink. I'm starting early. Drinking starting early. Comic instead of comment. Superjob is here, and they have proven themselves to be quite the regular. Logan Wayne, we're back, baby. Although Logan Wayne sees me wherever I pop up. Logan Wayne's there if I pop up on your mint. Logan Wayne will catch me if I'm on OmniDog's channel. So we're back, but we've been here the whole time. Bunkmaster B is on a family trip. I know he was flying earlier today, so hopefully that all went safely and he has landed where he is off to. But we were talking some dochi last night. I'm not going to rap, at least this early in the show. My tongue is not prepared for any dochi at this point, but boy, do we love our dochi. Edwin Billiot says here, hello, Crushers. That's what we're settling on for now. We could still be workshopping. If something better comes along, you know, then we could switch. But I think for now, we're going to be Crushers. Mall 360 is here. He knows that I'm behind, but wants to know my thoughts on the newest Ultimate Wolverine issue. The thoughts are empty. It's an empty head because I truly am this behind. It was a struggle bus just to finish the comics that I needed for today, so it's going to be quite some time until you find out my opinions on that. But based on what I've liked and disliked about Ultimate Wolverine so far, let's say decent plot, not enough content, don't like the letters. That's probably how I'm going to feel about it. Okay. Ryan Bragg saying hello to everyone. Kane, one of my friendly regulars with fantastic taste on music from the East Coast of the United States. Helen saying hello, and we love that Helen now has a profile picture so we can associate with her with one of our favorite comic book characters. James Abel reminding you that the Most Wanted DC Omnibus poll is open, and it's only open for 3 more days. We have not, I feel like we haven't been schlepping it as hard as we were the Marvel poll, and I just think maybe people are exhausted from all the polls, or maybe there just hasn't been enough for people to make content. I'm hoping I'm going to get back in one of the next 2 days to do some poll-related content, but I did check in, and it was just crossing 2,000 votes, so it certainly has enough to be statistically significant, and it's got a huge amount of votes. I think that already puts it over last year. However, Marvel set a really high tide mark. I think it got almost up to 2,800 votes, so please, if you haven't voted already, please go and vote, or share to your omnibus buying friends if they have not voted yet. DC has spoken with Omar, and they're like, yeah, we're paying attention this year, so votes really matter. John Pauls, hello. Did anyone find the correct public emails to send about the Masterworks cancellation? Oh, we'll get into that. That might have to be the Moment of Krisis. We'll get into that. And James has got you if you need those emails. Jean-Remy Argueta saying, hello everyone, can't make it today, but hoping all we have a good stream. And I love seeing your name, even if you just pop in and say hi. It definitely adds to my mood because you're one of those folks that I'm used to seeing. Saturday Morning Fan, happy 40th to Goonies today. Why did we never get a Goonies comic? I wonder who owns that IP. Saturday Morning Fan would love an epic or omni of the Marvel classic movie adaptations, and that's hard, because then, like, each one of them has their own rights issue, right? Like, heaven only knows. A lot of people, it's like how sometimes a certain very fine condition friend of ours can announce a book from a certain publisher, and they're like, well, don't compare it to a book from another publisher. Like, if the movie rights are owned by different IP and different studios, like, they're not going to want to be in the same book as each other, which means we got to just hope for, like, a deluxe edition. So, let's see, is there any other unique human being I've yet to say hello to? Stoops, ready for a great time. So, oh, by the way, for those of you who watched me open all my books last week, which they're just everywhere. I have not been back in this chair all weekend. It was a very busy weekend, and so everything I opened is kind of just on the shelves, scattered around wherever I left it. That was a Wellington-wide internet outage that lasted for hours. It was all the way up to the northern suburbs of Wellington. I mean, it was huge, just an entire city without wired internet because there was a problem with the fiber network. And so I tried to switch to my phone to be like a mobile hotspot to just get on and be like, hey, everybody, I'm alive. Thanks for watching. And the phone network was being so pounded by everybody jumping onto it because their house networks were down that I couldn't even load like one image on my phone. It took like 45 minutes. So, you know, it was just coincidental. I know sometimes my internet just sucks. Personally, for me, sometimes my internet sucks in this house, but that was all of Wellington's internet sucking. Jamie C47 is here. Wow, making it to your first pull list stream. I feel like I talk to you all the time, but I guess maybe it is your first pull list. Next, of course, we need to get you to have a profile pic. That is if there's like a content drip of bullying, first you show up for the pull list stream, then we get you to add a profile picture. and Patrick Borgeld, I forget. There's only so much room in this little brain, and we got a lot of comics in there. Lance, who when I don't do the pool list, I don't get to see, but he'll be driving, but that's okay. I know he'll be listening. There is a lot of Star Wars, which is usually something Lance and I tend to geek out over. Penny Ma is here saying hello to the beautiful people. Keith is here, logged in to see if any comics came out last week. Weird how they stopped for a month, if only. And I think I've said hello to all the unique human. Oh no, Johnny is here. My Evergreen punching bag pals. We all take it out on each other, our opinions on Evergreen books. He was on the Evergreen stream with me on Near Mint Condition talking about Fantastic Four a few weeks ago. Georgie Chimchimov is here, by the way. Go and subscribe on Spotify, although I don't know if he's doing YouTube stuff yet. He swears he will. But you can get his podcast, Biff Bam Pow, a comic book podcast, on Spotify. Hayden is here, and Hayden, oh boy, could we just talk about Drag Race for a whole hour, but I know that's not what everybody else is here for, so I'm not going to do it. Novarg is here. Is that a new profile pic, Novarg? Seems like a different perspective on your creature. When do we get to read the comic, Novarg? Mikiel Westlius is here. Good to see everyone. For someone who's very critical of Marvel's line of comics, you still point out a substantial number of comics from the publisher most weeks. Well, I'm a Marvel zombie out of necessity because it helps me keep all the guides up, and I always say that the show is in service to Crushing Krisis. Like, this is to help me keep up with things and know what to put on guides in Crushing Krisis. So if I don't read all of Marvel, Crushing Krisis very quickly gets behind, and luckily I do love comic books. But I often find that my joy is coming from other publishers, and that's certainly been the case over the past couple of years. I have dropped Marvel for periods. I don't know if it's feasible for me to totally drop Marvel right now, but there certainly is the possibility that it gets totally awful enough that I drop back and only read it on Marvel Unlimited and be 3 months behind, but then I can't do the show. So there are gears within gears there, and a lot of, wow, people are already having great conversations about the polls and things. I usually don't take people who at each other, but I haven't seen a unique message otherwise yet from Cruel Angel, who's mostly voting for Batman books. I think we all know how I'm going to vote on the DC poll. It's going to be all Wildstorm, Wonder Woman, maybe a little pinch of Hawkman. So I do want to do a stream about the DC poll one the next 2 days. It's not just going to be my top 60 like it did for the Marvel poll, because that would get real boring real fast. It would just be Wonder Woman, Wildstorm, Wonder Woman, Wildstorm. But I do have an idea, so we will see if I have the time. One Wheel Tracks actually got the notification. It's late for him in the UK. A collab coming up from us as soon as I'm caught up in the poll list, or at least not behind any further on the poll list. Stephen Patterson is here. Spain had that complete power outage a few weeks ago. I remember that. And Anna May is here. Welcome to you. And I think I made it to the bottom, except for, is this my friend? Cyril, I think we decided I'm allowed to say. Okay. We all know that it's so funny. So I don't look at the poll results. I really, really try not to look until the end. I sometimes at the end will go back and see how things were doing over time, which is how I know that the Cassandra Cain book was neck and neck with Tim King last year. But I do look at what people write in the what we missed, just because I'm a masochist and I want to feel terrible about all the things we missed. And last year, people were like, The Adventures of Bob Hope. And sometimes I see things that people say we missed. I'm like, you losers. What nonsense. What kind of joke are you trying to pull on me? And then I look it up, and the comic book turns out to be real. This year, I saw a lot of comments for Looney Tunes, which it came down to the wire, and we didn't have the book researched. And I was like, it's probably not going to be in the top 10, so we're just going to skip it for now. So that's on me. But then I saw a lot that were suggesting things that were already on the poll, then I go from masochism to sadism, because I'm like, you morons, it's already on the poll. But to be fair, the poll is not user-friendly, and it's got 600 and I think like 69 options on it, so it's really easy to miss one book, and we're always working to try to find a better way to do that. 2 more quick hellos, James the Medium Announcer and Javier Hernandez. Okay, well that was a lovely repartee with all of our friends and faves, and I really appreciate. I mean, it's wild. When we started, the regulars were just the people I knew from Near Mint Condition and Omnidog. I didn't have any regulars. I think my only regular that I would have recognized from like 4 or 5 years ago when I was doing streaming is Reaper. And now I have all of you people that I see every week and that I felt totally bad that I wasn't seeing the past couple weeks. That is wild. So, I have a couple of moments. I've been storing up the moments of crisis, but I think we gotta talk about Marvel Masterworks, but maybe we're gonna make it a little broader than that. So for those of you who don't know, Marvel Masterworks are what's on my top shelf there. They are Marvel's ultra premium standard size hardcover reprint format. They started it in the late 80s, actually, as the way to get Silver Age comics in print. And if you think about it, those Silver Age comics in the late 80s were only 25 years old. So for us, today, that would be like comics that came out in 2000, excuse me, while I turned to dust. But the great thing about it is Marvel stuck with the line. They had to revive it twice, I think once in the later 90s, and then again, like officially in the early 2000s. And they've kept it going. Some of these original Volume 1s were originally Volume 1 in 1987, and they've reissued them a couple times in different cover dress, but the Masterworks line have existed all that time, so we're coming up on 40 years of Marvel Masterworks. And one of the interesting things about the line is very early, the covers used to look different. They were, in my opinion, truly hideous, but they kind of like had a special frame around the cover image. Now they, I mean, this is not now. There's a classic one. Now it's just the standard silver. But they used to have this like fancy frame around it, and then it was all different colors and stuff. And eventually they decided the silver was going to be the uniform look pretty early on. But they continued to do those framed alternate covers for the past 25 years to make the original vanishing group of people who have the original books happy that they could keep up their DM covers, and Marvel would even do them for new lines. I was like, oh, maybe they'll just do them for existing lines because, you know, people already have the books. No. So Marvel has shown, the whole point of that story is, Marvel has shown an amazing dedication to this line. There are over 300 individual volumes. They've cracked all the way into books from the 80s. Very recently, there was a West Coast Avengers Masterworks volume, when that series did not start its ongoing run until 1985. But some big news came out from Near Mint Condition this weekend, which is that Marvel has placed the Marvel Masterworks line on indefinite hiatus. And they're looking for fans to make some noise if they really, really want to see it come back in some form. And I have a lot of complex feelings on this, some of which are just about Marvel, and some of which are about the entire industry and how collected editions exist in the industry. So I don't know, should we go to big to small, or small to big? I'm not sure. Let's start small with Marvel Masterworks. So the thing is, I'm not privy to Marvel's sales numbers, and we don't really have real sales numbers for collected editions, so I don't know how dire the situation is. Clearly, they're having trouble making these books profitable, or they wouldn't cancel them. And I'm sure that some of them remain profitable, like probably X-Men, I would assume, is probably one of the most profitable lines. There are people who still buy the Masterworks X-Men, even though we're into material that's now been covered 3 and 4 times in other collected edition formats. But not all of the line is as popular as X-Men, with books like Man-Thing, books like Ghost Rider. Not all of them are going to be selling on the X-Men level. People love to remark when prices go up, whether that's an omnibus or an epic collection, the price, it's not the same as the price, how to say this? It's not the same as in the supermarket where price just goes up with inflation and then inflation drops and they just leave the price high. With books, they really are always getting more expensive. The paper, the press time, books are creeping up. And so to try to say like, well, epic collections should always be $40, then we wouldn't have epic collections. Then we would be in the same situation we are with Masterworks. The books have to get more expensive. But clearly, just making the Masterworks $10 or $15 more expensive is not going to do the trick, or else Marvel would have tried that. So there's clearly an economic issue happening, but the problem is that Marvel, I'm sure this didn't happen on one day, like the Masterworks sales have fallen through the floor. They had to have economic indicators to suggest this going on, I would think at least for a few months, because this had to be something they were considering even before tariff situations got wild. And so if that's the case, I really question that they like opened up a new West Coast Avengers line. That's crazy. We should be super ultra focused on getting the existing lines of about, there's 10 or a dozen, and I'm not talking about lines that they've clearly abandoned, like Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos. I'm talking about lines where they could cobble together another book, like Ant-Man. I'm talking about lines that are alive and well, like Avengers, Uncanny X-Men, Man-Thing, Ghost Rider. Surely they could have had a plan in place, but that's the other thing that this makes me think, which is that where was the plan? Masterworks originally was to collect all of the Silver Age. Well, we've just about done that, and anything that's going to sell a Masterworks, we're clearly not going to get a Minnie the Model or Patsy Walker Masterworks. All the things that are going to Masterwork from the Silver Age have been Masterworked. So then they said, let's move on to the Bronze Age. That's fair, and at this point, we don't have everything from the Bronze Age, but we have a large number of the significant ongoing lines from the Bronze Age, and Ghost Rider is one of the last ones that need to complete, although certainly we need one more volume of Marvel Team Up, several more volumes of Marvel the other way. One more volume of Marvel 2-in-1, several volumes of Marvel Team Up, but those volumes are now into the 80s. The thing I bring to the table is, I think there always should have been an exit plan. I think to see a Marvel Masterworks of West Coast Avengers is crazy talk. That's from 1985. We've got epics, we've got omnibuses. You're selling the cachet of the Masterworks used to be that they were like the first premium retouch of this classic material, and I get that material from the 80s is classic now. Again, the material that started the Masterworks line was only 25 years old when the Masterworks line started. Material from the 80s is now 40 years old, so it's still classic, but I just think there should have been an endpoint in mind for the Masterworks line. You know, I look at a book like Doctor Strange, which I think the newest one is too far back on my shelf to grab right now, but they finished his 1974 series, and in the most recent volume, it pressed ahead to his 1987 Strange Tales series to pick up the first 3 issues. I think that's crazy. They had the opportunity to just say, you know what, this is the final Doctor Strange volume. And I think there's been that opportunity on several of the lines now to say, like, you know what, this is the final volume, or even if they don't say it out loud, to give it a nice rounded off stopping point the way they did at the end of the Submariner line. Could there be another Submariner book? Yes, it could be Supervillain Team Up, but nobody needs that because they didn't cut off an issue 3 of Supervillain Team Up. So I do think that they were a little overly optimistic, not only with mapping volumes, but also with assuming the line could and should go on forever. And a lot of fans were happy to be optimistic about that. Although then if you look who was actually buying the books, apparently the group was much smaller than the people that were optimistic about it. And I am guilty of that myself because I love rooting for the Marvel Masterworks line to continue, but I actually only have a 1, 2, 3 active Masterworks lines right now, which is Defenders, which I actually was considering stopping, but we'd only need 2 more to get to New Defenders. Marvel 2-in-1, which we only need 1 more, and Marvel Team Up, which I'm only planning to buy 1 more, even if there are 5 more, because it gets us to issue 100. So, me personally, I had decided that the line was going to stop at a certain point. For me, the Daredevil line ended at the end of Frank Miller. I stopped buying it. For me, the Fantastic Four line ended at the end of John Byrne. I stopped buying it. Now, that happens to the most recent volume, but I think, actually, there's probably a lot of fans out there who decided they did not need to keep buying Masterworks up until the mid-80s, almost to the 90s, on a lot of these lines, and they made that decision for Marvel, and now Marvel's trying to sell a line of books that is stretching farther than people care for when there's still Bronze Age material like Man-Thing that is languishing. So I feel like we lost the train a little bit, but I guess my point is I'm kind of shocked that this decision to put the line on indefinite hiatus is being motivated by financial factors now, when the decision should have been motivated by understanding how big the Epic line is selling, the generally decreasing sales of Masterworks, and that it was time to get off the stage in a planned fashion. I do watch your comments, by the way, as it's going on, and I see somebody said the volume is somewhat low. Let me see if I can... No, it looks like it should be really, really high, actually. Or are you saying it's too high? Anyway, I'll keep an eye on that. Okay, but now let's just explode this 1 level higher before we wrap up this moment of crisis. We're never owed books, and books have to turn a profit. I go back to what I said about the epics. Some people want them to be $40 forever, then the epics would go away. Marvel has to price them at a price that they will sell and sustain themselves. And we are sometimes ignorant, or at least willfully ignorant, about all the factors that it takes to print these books, because it's not just sending existing files to the printer. That might be the case for Uncanny X-Men, which has been reprinted every which way, but for a book that is literally collecting something for the first time, like Generation X epics, they've got to prep all the files. And that's not, in some cases, that means rescanning things page by page. And then the scan is a little fuzzy, somebody's got to go and retouch the scan. Think about these books. They're 300-400 pages each. Think about how long it takes to even just do the quickest of looks across a page to retouch things that are fuzzy or colors that look blotchy on 400 pages. That's somebody's job, and they need to draw a salary. So it's great when things are already retouched, because then the files do exist and they can just be assembled into a print file and just need QAing. But for things that are being collected for the first time, that lift is much higher, and every Masterworks generally is like collecting something for the first time, because even if it's come out in other formats, they're doing the retouch at a much higher level on a masterwork than they would for an epic or an omnibus. So a lot of economic factors come out of that, right? People talk about like, oh, those Gen X epics shouldn't even exist, they should reissue them. We got them because they cost however much they cost, and that was how much prep they could do on the files at the time. If we want a full Masterworks level prep on the files to make them look real pretty, it could have made the epics balloon 2 to 3 times in price. That's why Golden Age omnibus tend to have a higher price point, because there's more retouching happening on the Golden Age stuff. So this leads me to kind of my umbrella thing that's going to end this, which is that we're not owed the books. And the books have to exist in an economic reality. And if that economic reality outstrips our own economic reality, that is the return on investment of buying that book and enjoying it, then they can't sell the book. But I just think that, with DC Finest, the price is going to go up. They're selling those at a loss for the first year. I'm absolutely, positively, 100% sure that they're selling that line as a loss, and the price is going to go up. And we have to decide, do we still value getting all of DC's line, or did we value getting books for $40? And so I just think in this hobby, it could go away in a second. As we saw with all of this tariff drama, all it takes is tariffs on one country and our books could be halved for the year. All it takes is a paper shortage, which is always being flirted with because paper is a renewable resource, but not as quick as we sometimes use it. All it would take is a paper shortage. All it would take is an ink shortage. All it would take is a long-term strike of shipping professionals or printing professionals. Our love of this hobby hinges on so many small decisions that any one of them could take it out, and these books could disappear. So A, let's enjoy the books we've got and be thankful for them, but B, let's try to live a little bit in the reality of these books. And I say that as somebody who's about to vote for Wildstorm books on the DC poll, which I might be the only person on earth who wants a union omnibus, but I understand that economic reality and fan crisis exists in a different place than economic reality crisis. So my hope is that, and my wish is that companies would acknowledge that shared economic reality universe with us and say things like, I think these books are going to get more expensive in the new year because printing costs have gone up, rather than just leave us all to speculate that. I wish Marvel Masterworks would have rounded off each volume and started planning for the line's potential obsolescence by making it so they all had a good stopping point if there wasn't going to be another volume after that, which they failed to do on books like Doctor Strange, right? So I could go on at length and maybe we'll have another stream. I have my own personal opinions on where each line should get to. I think some of them are fine to stop where they are. Fantastic Four made it to the end of the burn. Let's not solicit another one. That's a perfect place to end. Other lines are kind of stuck. We need at least 2 more on the Thor line to finish Walt Simonson. We need at least 2 more on the Avengers line to finish Roger Stern. So it's not as easy as the Fantastic Four line with everyone. So there's my unhinged, unfiltered, uncut thoughts on the Marvel Masterworks line, but also the idea that these books have to exist in reality. And I know we hate saying the price went up, but that is, inflation is sometimes for a reason. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of it in 2026 for many different reasons. And I think we need to say to ourselves, ultimately, let's live in this economic reality. And what is the maximum ROI, return on investment, that I get in enjoyment from these books, at which point they will be priced out? Because I'm telling you, $199 omnibus will happen in 2026. I have no insider information. I'm just telling you because I watch the trends, and all of my guides and prognostications and everything is based on data. It's coming, and you have to decide now how you're going to feel about it. So that was kind of a long moment of crisis, but I've been saving these up all this time. Okay, so here's where we kind of do AMA, kind of do comments, but y'all, we are like already minutes and minutes behind where we're supposed to be. Let me just remind you, CrushingCrisis.com is the real center of this particular universe, this particular crisis reality, and it's got so much content on it, literally millions of words, including guides to all sorts of comics. And it's funny, I'm on Reddit now, because I've been on Reddit for almost 20 years, but I've been more in the omnibus and collected edition parts of Reddit recently, because I've been wanting to talk about the polls and answer people's questions and take their feedback. It's wild to me how much people just have questions that are the basicest question, like, which Avengers books did Jonathan Hickman write? And it's wild on one side because I'm like, there are so many sources for that information. Why are you asking Reddit? But that's the reality we live in now. People just want to ask the questions on Reddit or ChatGPT. They don't actually want to use a search engine anymore. And it's not just youths, it's people. But also, that's what started all the Crushing Crisis guides, because in 2010, I was asking those questions and there was no good answer. And it's been a really good reinforcement to me that the site has not gone out of style. Sometimes I think, oh, there's Epic Collections now. You don't need guides to that stuff. You don't need reading orders. There's League of Comic Geeks. There's comics.org. There's this, there's that. No, there's still a reason it exists. And there's still a reason it's one of the best resources on the web. And I always can improve it and make it better. And part of what pays for that is patreon.com/crisis. I have not posted on Patreon much this year because this has kind of turned into me, my public address system. But I'm still launching tons of Patreon specific stuff on the site. And it's kind of got to the point that if you're a Patreon, you just load the site and then you get everything when you're on the site. So anyway, I'm going to say ask me anything. I don't know how long we're going to do that. Plus, I'm sure you all had 1,000 thoughts on Masterworks. So let's just try to see what some of them were. Yeah, the Marvel Premiere Classic old series, that, for people who don't know, they were normal size hardcovers with a standard black dust jacket that just had a silhouetted out image on the front. And they historically had a reputation for really crappy restoration. They were like the most basic ass restoration that you could get, but they were not always continuous. Sometimes there would be a line like West Coast Avengers or Roger Stern Avengers or X-Force where they'd put a few of them out in a row. And that sort of was like the proto-epic collections because they were looking for a line that had a lower price point than Masterworks, both from a restoration standpoint and from a build standpoint, that they could release and get people those stories. Then they eventually realized, oh, if we just do epic collections, people will have a gotta catch 'em all Pokemon response. Josh Greathouse is here. He's a fantastic artist. He has an ongoing comic, Bang, which I adore. I think fans should make their voices heard, but this feels like promotion to gear fans into fear. Yeah, I mean, they're going away. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's fear-mongering, but the fear-mongering is real because the books are going away. I really hope that Marvel hears from fans what they really value. Like, I'm just one voice, and I'm only buying 1 to 3 lines, so my opinion actually does not matter that much. There's people who are buying all of the lines or half of the lines. So I hope Marvel just hears from them and hears some options of what might make people happy in terms of, like, do people value them enough to have a higher price point? Do people just think Marvel should do one more book that, like, closes out the best that it can? I hope that is the case. Josh thinks the opposite. I bet Ghost Rider and Man Thing, since they don't have a lot of options. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I truly don't know the sales. Ghost Rider is publishing content for the first time. Ghost Rider might be selling like hotcakes. It is getting collected into Epics after, but the Masterworks are blazing the trail. Man Thing has been an omnibus already. So if I was at Marvel, I love data, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. So if I was at Marvel, I'd be looking at that stuff all the time. I would be very, very curious to know if a Masterworks, a material that's already been well collected, especially in a premium format like omnibus, does better. Okay. Georgie Chimchimov, first, I'm glad you said this because this is a point I didn't get to in my moment of crisis. First, the mighty Marvel Masterworks got canned, still not over that, and I want my digest size with good paper format with Romero covers. Now the Masterworks hiatus, not a good year for Masterworks. This is a point I forgot entirely. Book publishers have a track record, right? Not for somebody who just sees one DC book in the store on the shelf in the local comic bookstore and picks it up, but we're the whales that are like forming the ongoing basis of sales. It's no different than album sales, TV viewers. You have your core of people who are your always watch, always buy, always show up, and part of that is based on reputation. Like, part of why TV shows have viewership that often tails off over the years is eventually the show gets dull or people lose interest, and so that base gets smaller and smaller. Ideally, you want the base to get bigger and bigger and go out with a bang. Like, I'm sure Succession went out with its probably highest ratings of ever because it just accumulated and accumulated. And so part of that is track record and trusting the company. And DC for years has had a terrible track record. Clearly lots of people buy DC books, but like when they put out a new line and be like, oh, this is our new Silver Age trade line, there are certainly several hundred people that could have bought those books that are like, no, I'm gonna wait for volume 3 to come out before I start buying them. And that even happened with the DC Finest. People like me, I wouldn't pick them up until they've had one line that they solicited a second continuous book in. Then I was like, all right, I'll try it. Marvel historically has a great reputation. Other than occasional printing errors, occasional bad paper choices, people really, really trust Marvel. And usually those things get corrected. Like when we had bad paper choices in the Epics, they like switched printers. So Marvel is generally seen as a very responsive, very fan-oriented collected editions publisher. And I think the mighty Marvel Masterworks going away and now the Masterworks going away is really shaking people's faith, and it's going to start hurting the pre-orders of other books unrelated to those two lines. Now, I look at that mighty Marvel Masterworks line and I'm like, who was that for? Why were they? I know that they were like, oh, they're mega sized. They're going to be easier for kids to pick up. And I know people like them, but they're recollecting material that's been recollected in, my voice is cracking because it makes me crazy, that are collected in like half a dozen different formats. Just reprint the Epic collections of that material. Why are you starting a new line that collects the same thing as the Epic collection, some of which are out of print? So I do think they got a bit of a head rush off of the pandemic years and how much collected editions were selling. And they started putting things out with the faith that anything could sell in the market, and they made some poor decisions. West Coast Avengers Masterworks, Mighty Marvel Masterworks. I'm not saying the format is bad. I actually think the Mighty Marvel Masterworks are adorable, but that was a bad decision. Those books should have never existed. They're not. You cannot compare it to DC Compact Comics when DC Compact Comics is selling like Watchmen in digest size, and Mighty Marvel Masterworks is selling like X-Men issues 20 to 30 in digest size. They're not on the same level as each other. But yeah, it does affect our faith in them, and that And that really, really matters. Well, Saturday Morning Fan, the problem with calling a Patsy Walker epic or Omni Patsy Walker before Hellcat would involve people caring about Hellcat. I think, honestly, if they saw a modern Hellcat collection sell, then they would think about it. But I just think because it's got so much restoration and it's not even superhero, it would be a heavy lift. We can't even get Sergeant Fury epics. We have 2, and that's at least action, even though it's war, and it's a character that's been in the MCU. So, yeah. Okay, Patrick Borgild, I did make a list. I voted for 6 Batman books, 2 Aquaman, and 2 Green Lantern. Pretty cool. Jamie C., what's the difference between Masterworks and Mighty Marvel Masterworks? Mighty Marvel Masterworks are paperback, and they are like digest or manga sized, and they don't cover the exact same material as Marvel Masterworks. They don't map exactly the same. Some of them don't line up with the Masterworks volumes. So they are yet another collection of Silver Age Marvel. We have Omnibus, we have Epics, we have Masterworks, and then we had Mighty Marvel Masterworks. And then actually, we were starting to get Marvel Masterworks remasterworks with even more retouching to them, which again, I think that was another decision born out of hubris. Logan Wayne bought my first Masterwork last year because I wanted John Byrne's Captain America run, and now I've been hooked on them. Been collecting DeMatteis Cap and Daniel Daredevil. Yeah, for me, it started out just as, oh, this is the easy way to get X-Men in sequential order, and then this all happened, so, you know. Dave Johnson's here. Oh, he was the one asking if there was trouble with volume. Hopefully that's on your end, because I think I have things cranked pretty loud. I was kind of quiet last week. There's just so many knobs and levers to turn when this damn streaming thing happens. Cool Angel only has 2 Marvel Masterworks, Ghost Rider and Tomb of Dracula. I kind of wish I had started the Tomb of Dracula, but no, I'm glad I didn't, because that's one of the ones that is risking getting cut off. Maybe I... Oh, now other people are saying that. Well, I guess I could switch to a different microphone. Sorry, I was reading ahead. So I have my input. The thing is, I get so... Oh! Now the volume is going to be fine. Okay, so we just had 35 quiet minutes, and now we're I'll do an ASMR for a minute while you adjust your volume. It's like 3 times as loud now. I know decibels increase on a logarithmic scale, right? But it's going to be much louder when I start talking again. Okay. Yeah, it should be way, way louder now. Okay. How are we... new buyers supposed to get in on Masterworks? Well, that's the problem, Michael. And hello to you, by the way. There was no get in on Masterworks plan. Unlike Epics, they were like, get it, and then it's gone, which of course is going to lead to a decreasing audience because there's no catch-up mechanism, and some of these people are now out of the hobby, possibly because they've died in the 38 years that Masterworks have been coming out. So, yeah, there was no catch-up mechanism, and I guess the remasterworks were kind of a catch-up mechanism, but when you have lines that are literally 20 books deep, putting out a remasterworks once a year is not a real catch-up mechanism. If there was ever a line that Marvel should have gone to Kickstarter with, they could have gone to Kickstarter with like, hey, we're remasterworking the first 10 Amazing Spider-Man volumes. Will people buy in for this? Because the idea of dripping them out 1 per year as a catch-up mechanism is, again, a decision born out of hubris. Kane, bring up a lot of good points as readers don't really consider when we purchase books from any publisher besides Marvel and DC. Ultimately, companies are here to make a profit, and if books aren't making a profit, it will potentially get cut. That would make fans upset, and that would have the effect on the company's bottom line. At the same time, these companies are not our friends. It's something we need to remember. They care about the bottom line, making their shareholders happy, and so on. If that means cutting a book line, they will do it. Yeah, I completely agree. Tariffs don't affect book by treaties, but Josh, as you well know, tariffs affect all the things, and it could affect ink. It could affect printing parts. The tariffs, people treat tariffs, and I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about people. They treat tariffs as if they're only on an end thing. Like, oh, well, books are exempt, so it's not going to affect me because books are exempt. Yeah, but the cardboard boxes, the printing materials, like tariffs affect every single thing in the line, and somewhere in that line is something that comes from China. And we know this to be true. So yeah, if we're saying the books were printed in China and now they're being brought to the United States, well, that's only 1 point of tariff on the books itself, which doesn't exist because books are not tariffed and all the other stuff happened in China. But still, all of the like manufacturing and distributing is happening in the United States of the distribution chain, and tariffs could affect that too. I mean, part of something that tariffs is affecting, again, I know you know this, Josh, I'm not trying to preach to you, is that there's less shipping jobs right now because there are less things being imported. And so there's less active kind of like trucks out there, and the pricing is going up. up for that because there's less active trucks in general. So if there's one week that's slightly heavier for shipping than a previous week, you've got to kind of vie for the shipping stuff. So that's driving prices up, even though that's moving in the opposite direction of the tariffs where there's less things rather than more expensive things. So it's like, it's, you know, all interrelated. Okay, wow. You all had so much interesting stuff to say, and I wish I could respond to everyone, but at some point we have to talk about comic books. Matt H saying, hey, Peter, my wife and I are busy right now, but I watched the replay. Have a good day, and a good day too as well. You only started collecting comic books 6 months ago. It feels like the worst time for that. Single issues and trade paperbacks are your besties. Digital, digital, digital. If I was starting all over again today, none of this would be here, baby. This would just be a backdrop, and it would all be digital. Screw physical. But the thing is, you never own digital, and if Marvel decides to turn off Marvel Unlimited one day, I would be screwed because I wouldn't be able to do research except for I have all these Epic collections. So that's why I went all in on Epics and why I'm now going all in on DC Finest. They are my hedge for my nuclear bunker in the future. Oh my gosh, you've had so many good things to say. Okay, we got to just move. We got to move on. This is maybe a sign, maybe, that the Moment of Krisis is almost a big enough thing to graduate to its own show. Like, as much as I love having my little late night monologue at the top of this show, it might actually be 2 different shows at this point. I don't know. We got to think about that. I say that as if I have time to do that many shows a week, right? Like, let's just actually get the things done that need to get done first. Okay. Oh, this is going to be a problem. So I have my, okay, let me just do the things I need to do. Zoom to fit. Okay, that's better. And then the thing is, these are later in the, okay, well, we're just going to do our best. We're just going to do our best here. Okay, so let's start talking about comics, shall we? There's so many to talk about today. I read 59 comic books in this release week. So I'm probably not going to take a break until the M's, but I figured out a way to see your comments as I go a little bit, so I will be able to interact with you and highlight some comments you make about the books, so I do invite you to do that. Okay, let me just bring up my credits PDF. Here we go. Okay, so I have 2 catch-up reads. Clearly, Catabasis is not the first things in the alphabet, but I did catch up on it. This, I think, was out on April 16th, and the final issue finally came up on Global Comics. Let's talk about it. I love this miniseries. I will say, I mean, when you've got 5 issues and it's this big heaven and hell story about this assassin and she's saving souls, there's only so much you can do in the final issue. And I think in this final issue, you know, I was maybe looking for something a little bit bigger and revelatory. And in retrospect, I'm actually happy that they just put a very good cap on this specific story because it leaves the room to be more Catabasis. I think this was incredible. I think the writing was great. The colors were great. The art was great. I think it was a really fun book. If you have Global Comics, you should read it because A, support indie comics, but B, to be at this level of quality of indie comics where the story really works and the action works and it's actually funny and everything tracks, that's a tightrope walk. That's really difficult to do. And we see a lot of big label comics that can't do it. So for an indie creator to be doing that at Black Box Comics, honestly, it has made me just be like, I'm just going to check out anything from Black Box Comics at this point, because that's how you hook somebody. That's how you build trust. And this book certainly built trust for me, which brings me to a second Black Box Comics. I think this was just in last week's poll originally, or April 23rd, the last one I did, but it wasn't on Global Comics yet, and now it was, so I got to catch up on it. This is by D.G. Chichester, and actually I have the credits right in here because this is late breaking. Pencils and inks by Mannix Francisco, colors from Lorenzo Berdoni, and letters by Leo McGovern. This is a really cool book. D.G. Chichester in Risk has made up this really interesting world where, due to global warming, all of the icebergs and glaciers and everything melt, and of course it releases ancient viruses, which is a thing that's going to really happen to us. And so a lot of people, there's basically like a flesh-eating virus, and people lose all these parts of their body, and so there's all of these cybernetic AI-driven grafts. And I just love this page. I don't usually do splash pages, but this guy that just got a square head, because that's like all he could afford to get put as a prosthetic on the top of his skull to protect his brain. I love that. But like, everybody's got all different cybernetics, but this woman who has partially a faceplate and one of her eyes is cybernetics, the AI driving the cybernetics is starting to communicate with her brain and talk to her on the inside. So she's a bookie, and basically she's leveraging the AI to tell her the probability of things so that she will always have her bookie company make money on the bets. But it's also starting to tell her things about, like, if somebody jumps out of window, what are their chances of surviving, or what are the chances that they actually just grabbed onto the side of the building and didn't fall all the way to the ground. So she's kind of just trying to live her roguish life, like on the fringe of society, to have her betting agency. But because of this preternatural technological intelligence in her brain, she's finding that she's getting drawn into bigger issues. I just think it was very clever. I think the art was really, really good. I love the world. I'm interested to see where D.G. Chichester takes it. This could stay in a very small ball place, right? It could just be about her as a bookie. It feels like it's going to be something bigger about the whole world that can emerge from that. And to me, that is really, really exciting. So both of those are on digital comics and or global comics. And you should check that out. Okay, let's see. We all know I don't read 2000 AD. Now we're into the actual alphabetical books. Used to be a reward, no longer a reward. I did read Astonishing Avengers. These are all of Marvel's digital comics, so we're just going to fly through them pretty quickly. This was, oh gosh, all my credits are out of order. It's making me crazy. Hold on. We're going to restart the timer. Okay, so this one is by Steve Orlando, art from Francesco Arcidiacono, colors from Carlos Lopez, letters from Travis Lanham. This is, I mean, what this is it's kind of like a very fun, very webtoony Avengers book that that kind of just like happens and gathers all their additional cast together. This is continuing the story of this big monolith that they found and the way that it might be affecting the world, but then there's other side missions happening. I like that soap opera quality. I guess we're going to do a minute on each one. I like that soap opera quality for Avengers. Like, I think that's actually really, really cool to play with the idea of like stuff is always happening. The main Avenger squad that's dealing with big things, they're not dealing with this day to day of like 2 issues ago, Cap had to fight somebody who was like trying to kill a bunch of people at a baseball stadium. Like, the big Avengers team is not dealing with that. However, the pacing of this was not the best. She-Hulk basically is hashtag Gwen Stefani walking into spiderwebs for like half of this digital issue, which is not all that long. But I do enjoy that Steve Orlando is getting his artist to get in this totally gay content of Beast like hanging off of Simon Williams' Wonder Man in the sauna or wherever they are on the deck. I just made me laugh when I got to this page. I'm like, this page has nothing to do with any other pages. So I think it's fine, and it's on Marvel Unlimited, so you can just read it. All right, we're going to try to do these faster. So this is Astonishing Spider-Man. I hate this comic book. It's written by Scott Aukerman, art by Julian Shaw, color by CC De La Cruz, and letters by Joe Supino. I think Joe Supino is the only one getting out of this with any kind of credibility for me, because this is just astoundingly bad. It's funny is it professes to be in continuity. It actually makes reference to what's going on in the current Joe Kelly Spider-Man series, and like it's the worst written Peter Parker. He looks like he's 12 for some reason. His attitude towards not having any power is like, works for me, screw having power and responsibility. It's just terrible. I wish it didn't exist. It's cheapening the character of Spider-Man. Then we get to Astonishing X-Men. What's interesting about this is that this is continuing the Gen X plot, which to this point has been written by Alex Packnadel, except for now this new arc I've seen tomorrow is being written by Tim Seeley, who has not written these characters in this arc yet, with art from Eduardo Adino, color from KJ Diaz, letters from Clayton Cowles. This was a little bit basic, because it kind of just had to reestablish the stakes, but it was actually like it was one of the better X-Men comics I've read recently. There's some layers of things happening. There's this new kind of human resistance that's trying to get rid of mutants, but now we see them dealing with a member of the MLF. Like, that's a little bit confusing. And now we have this slowly reforming Generation X, because Banshee's in his castle. He's got Husk with them. Now they've got skin. So I think it's a really fun book, and to just get it for free on Marvel Unlimited is pretty fun. And now we come to the final of the major in continuity Marvel Unlimited books, which is Avengers Academy Marvel Voices. This is written by Anthony Oliveira, art from Pablo Collar, colors from KJ Diaz, and letters from Ariana Meher. This issue asked, what if you could doom scroll through your ex's content, but your ex's content and the thing that you were doom scrolling was actually the time stream? So it's really, really interesting. You know, I'm not always a great lover of things that goes through like, this is one future that could happen. I also don't always love the idea of like, oh, let's fast forward to this person's like death scene and like wring some emotion out of a character dying who's a character that we love, who we're going to see next week anyway, because it just feels like a trick that an author's playing on us. But somehow this comic really, really made it work, because it was so rooted in what the character doing the doom scrolling was doing in the present day. This was not just showing us, the reader, what might happen to these characters. This was a character in the story torturing himself by looking forward at moments he would not get to experience with people he loves. That is an interesting device, and it created conflict between these characters that are finally all back together after like weeks and weeks and weeks of this weekly series of them being apart. This continues to hover just outside of my top 10. I love this book. It's really, really great. If you're not reading it and you have Marvel Unlimited, What are you waiting for? Mad Monkey Shock and Roll Badger, I think it's the other way, Badger, Mad Monkey Shock and Roll, which is from First Comics. It's by Mike Barron. This is issue number 4, and it's still not available digitally, so I cannot read it. Batman Superman World's Finest. We are Yesterday Part 3. This is annual 1 of this title, and this is script by Christopher Cantwell, although plotted by Cantwell with Mark Waid, art from Dan McCabe, colors from John Callis, and letters by Steve Wands. Actually, there's 2 stories. We'll talk about the backup separately. I hated this. I really, really, really hated this because I still don't think the premise of the story makes any sense. So we have Gorilla Grodd. He's gone back in time to pluck all of these Legion of Doom villains from the best moment of their villainy, which they previously lost. Why would you not be going into the future to pluck them out of future versions of villainy where they might be better at it? I don't understand. Also, I just don't think this art from Dan McDade was very good. I don't think it matched with the normal cleanliness we associate with this title because of Dan Mora. I get that this was an annual, so it kind of existed separately, but just the faces looked wrong, and I don't think John Callis' colors matched very well to what we usually see on the main series. So I just thought this was really, really clumsy. It did not make me excited about this comic book crossover, which is not really crossover because we're really just seeing things in the past and then seeing things in the present that are informed by the things of the past, but I just think it was a rather low quality. I have no recollection of the backup story. I'm sorry. Okay, now, and James Abel had to say about that one, this felt like a pointless crossover issue. The only thing that mattered was a few couple of pages. John Stewart backup was very good. I guess I've got to go and reread the backup because I don't recall. Okay, so now we come to Batman the Long Halloween, the last Halloween, which is always a mouthful. This is issue number 7 of 10. It's titled The Discovery. It's by writer Jeff Loeb, and he's got a rotating series of artists. This is by Dave Johnson, with colors from Dave Stewart and letters and design by Richard Starking. I feel like we're kind of stuck in a rut on this series right now, which is unfortunate because it's connected to the absolute all-time classic, The Long Halloween, where every issue is so propulsive and occupies such a specific moment in time. It just feels like this whole issue is like Batman being tough on Robin. I'm going out. Where can I come to? You have homework. Homework? Find this holiday. I want to know where Mario Falcone has been all this time. Like, it's the whole issue is just him being tough on Robin. In a world where we also have Batman and Robin Year 1 coming out from Mark Waid right now, it just feels like, and at a point where like there's no real different character beat, like there is some cool detective work here and there's some fun series with Poison Ivy and Catwoman and like whether they're in control of themselves, but it just feels like we've read the same 3 issues for the past 3 issues, and that's unfortunate because this book has a real pedigree to live up to, and I just don't think it's living up to it. I didn't read Battle Action number 9. I've already preemptively dropped Bitterroot after the first issue of Bitterroot because it just was not working for me. The cast was too big and I couldn't figure out who to care about, which is going to be a theme that continues this week. I'm not reading the Cheeky Comics Sundress special featuring an Only Friends with Pen story. This is from A Space Between, which is that comic book company that I'm always like, I don't understand their release strategy. Well, I still don't. This I want to hunt down because this was one of those things that it was not obvious on Global Comics that I noticed. I didn't see it on Amazon, so it might be somebody's like individual Gumroad or itch.io or Patreon or something. It's called Chihuahua Head, and when I read the description on League of Comic Geeks, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so interested. So I am going to try to find this and come back and read it. I know this is going to take time, but oh boy, let me see. So I am the queen of hotkeys. I'm always doing like hotkey something in Chrome. I don't ever use my mouse, but when you're in StreamYard, it has its own uses for like common Chrome and system hotkeys, which makes me crazy. So if you ever see me on a Omar stream and you see that like we're like strobing through all of these different layouts and like nobody seems to be able to control it, that's because I'm trying to use my normal hotkeys to like select all or change tabs or whatever. And in I can't spell Chihuahua, which is a prohibiting factor in telling you more about this book. Okay, here we go. Chihuahua Head. So I'm just going to read you the description. It says, have you ever felt your body taken over by an animal instinct? Delilah has. Chihuahua instinct. Bum, bum, bum. A young girl named Delilah moves into her late grandfather's remote home in the mountains and finds a dog that was left behind. She calls him Baloney. Delilah gets her first party invite from a classmate but would rather stay home. She's prone to anxiety and much like her hermit-like grandfather prefers to be left alone. Me too. However, when Baloney disappears in the mountains, her journey to find him will lead her through the traitorous mountain to uncover her family's anxiety-based werewolf curse. This is sounding very relatable to me. Talk to the ghost of her grandfather and find out the secret behind the animal-faced monsters that haunt the mountain. That sounds incredible! So I'm going to figure out how to buy it because I want to. And then this one also sounded really cool and had really cool art. So I have a lot of homework to do to find some of these indie releases that I just was not ready for. Copra, hilariously, is one of the books that I'm the most excited about, and I do not read because I'm waiting for more of these master collections to come out. And Mikkel Fife said that there's going to be more of them out once this finishes. There's only going to be one more issue of this. So I hope we're immediately following that with a solicit for another master collection because I just love Copra. But this is one, I know I'm the one who advocates jumping in the middle just to enjoy the book, but Copra is one where I'm seriously waiting for it to just be all done so I can read it from beginning to end. Technically, these last 5 issues are a miniseries called Death of Copra, but they also just happen to be the last 5 issues of the book. Copra 49 and Death of Copra number 4 are the same thing. This is another indie comic that had a really lovely cover, Crescentia, from Alina Wahab and Laura Romano. And then Critter, okay, I know I keep saying that I would read Antarctic Press books if I could get them digitally. I looked, and this is on Global Comics, and it's only 1 issue behind present. So for the next issue of Critter, I will read some issues of Critter, and we will finally have my commentary on an Antarctic comic book. The Crow, Flesh and Blood, is just a reprint of one of the Crow miniseries from the 90s, which is never seen collection. This is called Crucial Times and Thought Crimes, and it reminded me of Silver Sprocket. It's not by Silver Sprocket. Such a cool cover. I know there's a lot of books I didn't read. Oh, but I read this. Crush Depth, which I hated. I really, really hated. I hated it so much. Flames in the side of my face. It's written by D.B. Andry and Tim Daniel, and I think the problem here is I've just read so many crappy comics from D.B. Andry and Tim Daniel at this point that I have no patience for their bullshit anymore. The thing is, they're fine writers. They write good dialogue, they form full characters, but I've read a couple of their series in full, and I know they're going to drop the ball at the end. I've seen their ball dropping. They have a ball dropping habit. Their balls are always dropping. So since I know that, and since I'm already detecting that in this issue, this is the end for me, which is a shame because I really like the art from Alex Sanchez. I like the colors from Kurt Michael Russell, the letters from Justin Birch, but I just don't believe in their ability to bring this home. Also, even though I like the nature of the pencils from Alex Sanchez, I do think that the action was incredibly hard to follow, and a lot of what this issue amounted to was just them being smashed by tentacles, and the art was portraying the tentacles smashing this woman so hard that it looked like her body should have just been broken in every possible place, and then she gets up and she's like, oh, that was tough. And I just think, that's a skill for an artist. If a writer gives you a really violent sequence, you can't make it look like you broke the character into a million pieces and then just continue the character afterwards. Like, you're one of the storytellers, and if you blow that scope of the battle, then we're not going to believe in when you do put characters in later, because we're like, well, she looked like she was dying and she wasn't, so I guess we can't believe what we see. So this is a drop for me. James Abel said, last issue felt like Aliens, this issue feels like The Thing. You can tell the writer loves classic horror movies. I will give you that, but it is not for me. Okay, moving on to Dark Pyramid, also from Mad Cave, also in issue number 2. This is from Paul Tobin, PJ Holden, Sarah Coella on colors, and Taylor Esposito on letters. The thing I'm realizing about Paul Tobin, who has been in the industry a really long time, is I don't like his plotting all that much. I just finished that series by him, String, last week, and I felt like he really didn't deliver there. And I feel like Paul Tobin does this thing where he often gets to a thing that's supposed to be somewhat salacious, and he just leans into, like, I'm shocking you. Like, it's almost like the narration in the comic could be like, are you shocked? I'm shocking you. Do you feel shocked? And this one, it was like this big party of like influencers, and then they all get killed, and it just, I understand that there's a motivation to be like, ooh, I'm gonna introduce you to this series of characters before I slaughter them so that you like feel something while I slaughter them. That's fine. But I just felt like the slaughter wasn't interesting. And they also I'm a great lover of the word fuck. I like saying fuck an awful lot. Every dialogue balloon had the word fuck in it. At a point, all the characters sound the same if they all say fuck as much as each other. So I just thought this was a really, really dim effort. And unfortunately, I do really like the X-Files-y kind of story about this cursed mountain and the strange pyramid inside of it. But I think you're going to find the theme this week, especially because I'm behind right now. If a book is not hidden for me and it's from an indie publisher, I do not have time for that. And even from Marvel and DC, there's a couple that I might not make time for anymore. I'm not reading Darkwick Duck from Dynamite, issue number 3. Oh, Death of Copra I apparently put in twice in alphabetical order. I'm not reading Defenders of the Earth from Mad Cave. It's in a separate continuity from the rest of the Flash Gordon books. And I read the first issue and I just was so confused. It was like in the deep future of Flash Gordon. I'm like, I'm just growing my love for Flash Gordon. I don't have enough care about him to read him in 2 different continuities right now. This, whatever this is, I'm going to get it because it looks freaking amazing. It's called Destroying Angel Lumen. All you got to do is show me that. So when I went through the covers, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to buy that. Hopefully it exists digitally. Now we finally come to a book that I get to sing the high praises of. Have I said anything nice this whole time yet? Good Lord. Okay, so this is Batman and Detective Comics, an annual number 1 for 2025, written by Al Ewing. And there were a number of creators. The main story had 3 different artists, Stefano Raffel, John McCrea, and Fico Ossio, with 3 different colorists, Lee Luffridge, Triano Farrell, and Ulysses Arreola, who I love, all lettered by Tom Napolitano. Here's what I loved about this. I think Detective Comics should be a mystery book. I think it should have something to detect. And Al Ewing puts together such an amazing detective story here. And here's the thing. I do prefer a detective story where we as the reader can figure the thing out, which I don't know that this one really was ultimately. But it allowed us to deduce things along with Batman. And I like that it took it through phases. Like, it seemed like it was going to be a locked room mystery, but then it turns into an international mystery, and then it turns into a computing mystery and a bibliographical mystery. And Al Ewing just kind of followed Batman through each of those things. And to me, it was so effective because it was like, wow, Batman really is a detective, and he's so good at all of these mediums. He figures out an audio clue. He figures out a clue about book publishing. And to me, that made it one of the best Batman stories I've read in recent years because it showed us how powerful of a detective he is. People treat Batman like he just can't get anything wrong. We all know. I hate that Batman. I like the Batman who can get things wrong all the time, but he's skilled enough to have hunches about everything. That's what this Batman was. And I just wanted to show you a little bit from each of the artists. Each of them were remarkable in their own right. I think this was the middle one, John McCrea. Really, really liked that one. And then Fico Ossio, which is a much more kind of modern rendered, glossy art. I just thought it was great from the back. It's one shot. You don't have to read any other Batman. It doesn't even rely on current continuity. If you have not read it already, I highly, highly recommend it. But then it had this adorable backup story, which really could get its whole own minute. This was written by Joshua Hale Fialkov. Where have you been, Joshua Hale Fialkov? I used to love your comics all the time, and I feel like I haven't seen his name in years. I pulled an Obi-Wan. I haven't heard that name in years. That's Obi-Wan who says that, right? Or is it somebody who says about Obi-Wan? Anyway, I was like, where has he been? So this backup story was called Batman and David Rosales, 7th grader, with art by Mike Norton, colors from Nick Filardi, and letters by Troy Peteri. I loved this. It was hilarious. It had big Gotham Academy energy of this kid who's like, I'm a detective too. But then Batman comes in, and at first Batman is kind of like brusque with him, but he eventually kind of realizes the kid is trying to keep people safe and that he's not just a Batman fanboy, but he like wants to do good in the world. I just thought it was so charming. I loved it. It made me so happy. And that's why this book was my DC pick of the week. There was no bad page in the book. I love anytime somebody has a mask where it just whited out eyes, Spider-Man, Deadpool, Batman. I do love when occasionally the artist will throw in them squinting and one eye getting bigger than the other. There's something to that. Very, very delightful to me. Now we come to Doom Academy, which was my Marvel pick of the week. And I guess I have to kind of like justify myself to you because I don't know if a lot of you are reading Doom Academy. Here's the thing. I didn't like love Strange Academy. It's fine. I liked it fine, but it's not like my favorite book the way a lot of other people are, which I think helps me a little bit because I'm not as obsessed with the idea of Scotty Young doing it as everybody else is. So this is written by Mackenzie Cadenhead, who I think is a masterful handle on the voices of these characters. And we've got 2 different artists, Pasquale Ferry and João M.P. Lemos, who are drawing 2 different parts of the book, colored by 2 different colors, Edgar Delgado and João M.P. Lemos coloring himself, and then lettered by Clayton Cowles. I love this. So the kids on the outside are trying to acclimate to being at Doom Academy, but also trying to free their friend from the trap of this book that is pulling in kids to fight all of the cryptids that have been sucked into the book over time, but then also we're looking at the narrative inside the book of our zombie girlfriend trying to fight off these cryptids and befriend the other girl in the book who sees that she's a zombie and is like, oh my gosh, you're also a monster. Like, it just works for me. It's adorable. Mackenzie Cadenhead understands the voices and understands we can only digest so many characters on the page at one time. I think one of the big problems with the original Strange Academy is it tried to put all 18 characters in play all of the time. I loved all 18 characters, but it was even with a recap page to identify them all. They were giving them such tiny slices of moments and of voice that I just felt like often we needed to peel away from those and just like focus on 5 or 6 of them in an arc or in an issue. This is doing that brilliantly. I really, really hope Marvel has Mackenzie Cadenhead come back for a Strange Academy series after One World Under Doom is over, because I want to see her write all the other characters. I think she's really, really good at this. This book has a high recommendation. If you've been skipping this because you liked the Scotty Young stuff and were nervous, I would say keep reading it. It is of the same quality. It is really, really enjoyable. I dig it. James Abel says, Doom Academy 3, enjoy the characters. I feel like we've been on the same plot way too long. It's only been 3 issues, James. What do you want, James? But no, your opinion, of course, is valid. Saturday Morning Fan, glad Strange Academy is back. Stinks the show was killed. By the way, feel free. So I have kind of like figured out my screen situation a little bit better. So I can see your comments, Drink, while I'm doing the issue reviews. I'm not going to highlight ones that are not related to the reviews because I want people to be able to like just see each issue review as it goes. So I see some other really cool stuff commented along the way here, but I can see them, and if you have a little review to share on one of the issues, you can. I just loved this page. I loved Pasquale Ferry drawing, what is her name, Shaylee, like floating in midair on her little fairy wings and like banging on the door, and then I love the lettering effect from Clayton Cowles of the bangs like coming off the door, which are so, this is such a great example of like how a lettering effect tells a story. The letters are so thin and kind of like so askew that it makes you think that she has no purchase because she's just flying in the air and she's tiny and she's got her little fist. So it doesn't sound like a big resounding bang. It sounds almost like tink, 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 which even though it says bang, it to me is reading tink, which I just think is a great lettering effect that marries so well to this is married so well. Like the art, the lettering effect, the sound that's making, the fact that we can't see that whole bang because it's partly blocked from the door frame. To me, this is what it looks like when lettering and art and writing and script all kind of go together in a really pleasing way. So I really, really like that. Now we come to the other Dooms book, which I thought was going to be my pick of the week, and it very nearly was because I loved it, which is Doom's Division. Talking about writers who just get it. Yoon-Ha Lee. Can we get Yoon-Ha Lee writing like a big book? Can we get Yoon-Ha Lee writing Daredevil? Can we get her writing Uncanny X-Men? She's so good. She's juggling like 10 characters here because it's the original Tiger Division and then all these other heroes who are like getting the Tiger Division. I feel like I understand who all of them are. I feel like I understand all of their motivation. And not only that, I understand the different cultures they come from. How did you do that in 22 pages? I don't understand. And then this artwork is so good. Min-Kyu Young on art with Matsuya Iancono on colors. Like some of the faces are like a little bit square, but I can forgive that when the action is so clear. The paneling is so good. Love that this is a page that is just using big widescreen panels, but then we have an inset panel to take us into Karma talking here from her perspective in the front so we can see the flare of her power. But I just love her and her little jet ski motor scooter there so much, is why I pulled out this page. But then as they're above the water, then we go under the water. I think everything about this comic was ultra pro level. It had social commentary. It had, there was so much to it. It was assembled so well, and I never stepped out of it. I think often when there's inconsistent colors or lettering, right, it forces me to stop my suspension of disbelief that I'm inside of the comic and come out like, whoa, oh, now I've got to think about like, why did that lettering confuse me? Or like, why could I not follow that action in that panel? And the best comics for me are comics that the craft is just so strong and so thought through that I never have to come out of the suspension of disbelief that I'm inside the comic. And to me, Doom's Division is doing that. I would urge you to please check it out. The first issue should be, I guess it's going to be another month before it's on Marvel Unlimited. But like, I wish there was a way for me to send an even stronger signal to Marvel that I want to see more of this. I think this is their best comic right now. I do. I think this is possibly, I guess aside from Avengers and Doctor Strange of Asgard that are in my top 10, so here's the thing I needed to talk about my top 12. I said all along, issues number 1 could get onto my top 10, top 12 in January and February. Then from March, April, May, you had to have 2 issues out to get in. Now starting in June, you have to have a minimum of 3 issues, which is usually how I do things for the rest of the year. If I was still at minimum 2 issues, which I guess technically I was because this came out in April, but now we're in June, so maybe I was being unfair, this would have actually been number 10 this week because both of these issues were 4.5 out of 5 terrific comic books for me. So I don't know how to send a stronger single to Marvel so actually my point being that this is actually higher than some of those Marvel books that you saw in my top 12, and I just goofed and didn't put it in there because I was applying June rules to April comics. My point being, I love this comic book. Okay. Are you all still there? I feel like I'm just talking to a wall right now. I'm sure you're all listening. Oh, this cover's friggin' wild. Dream Journal. I have no idea what it is. You know I love pink on a cover. Okay. Now we come, unfortunately, to Fantastic Four number 31 by Ryan North, Corey Smith, Oren Jr. on inks, Jesus Bertov on colors, Joe Caramagna on letters. This was horrible, horrible, why are you so horrible? I'm going to write a whole opera about how the mighty Ryan North has fallen so far. When can he stop writing this comic book? How did we go from Fantastic Four being my favorite comic book at Marvel to very close to my least favorite comic book at Marvel? I don't understand. None of the characters act like themselves anymore. Is his attention so torn in coordinating this one world under doom that he's just like pooping out these scripts? I don't understand, because this whole script is like predicated on the Thing wanting to be the Thing again, but then all the Fantastic Four are losing their powers, which is a thing, and I appreciate that nod to continuity, but then they make some very questionable ethical decisions in the name of science to get their powers back, which like just doesn't track in the script, and then Ben Grimm like basically just like has a villain turn against all the rest of them and screws over the rest of the team to get his powers back, which like he usually doesn't even want back. It just didn't make any sense on a character motivation level to me. It felt like we've gone from issues that were so rooted and so motivated and so obvious that they fit in with the world of Fantastic Four to issues that are just being thrown out like frisbees with no motivation and no making sense and no heart to them at all. I need this series to end. It is ending, but unfortunately then it's going to start again. And I fear that Ryan North may be tapped out at this point, because I've been having this problem now for several issues in a row. James Abel says Fantastic Four 31 fun issue, but it all felt almost like a filler issue. I could see an alternate universe timeline might come into play later on. Yeah, they did. So the whole conceit of it is they were going to try to get their powers back by visiting the point that the cosmic rays happened in other universes to see if they could just soak up some stray rays without affecting the Fantastic Four of those universes getting their powers, which is a really cool concept, but it just, the way they went about it felt totally out of character and also quite boring and repetitive to me. You know, events do that from writers, is what I noticed. Happen to remember on Access. I was reading, there's like this, not like a logical fallacy, but a trope, and it was called like the idiot problem or something, but you know, you can call any trope anything, but basically like that a plot will only work if every character acts like the dumbest version of themselves, and that's what One World Under Doom feels like to me. It's not that like the quality of the writing on a dialogue level is bad, it's that every single character seems to be acting like the dumbest version of themselves, and I just don't have time for that. I don't. Femforce is from AC Comics. I do not read it, but that is of course a very pink cover, which we love pink covers. I don't read Feral from Tony Fleeks from Image. I just don't really do talking animal comics. I did read Frankenstein New World, The Sea of Forever, number 3, which is from the world of Hellboy, or the new world of Hellboy, because this is kind of what exists after the Hellboy Goes to Hell stuff. Is script by Mignola, Christopher Golden, and Thomas Schnigalski, with art from Peter Berting and colors from Michelle Madsen, and letters from Clem Robbins. You know, what's interesting is I own all of Hellboy and all of BBRD and everything, and I keep saying I'm going to read it, and then I never do. But I have read some of it, and I think that Hellboy's universe has a very specific kind of pacing where like it's very somber, and like things happen, and it really gives you time to like live in that. Even Hellboy issues that I've read where he does punch something and there is excitement, there's a lot of pages to just like let you sit in that feeling, and this book has that. And at points it gets a little slow for me. You know, we have Frankenstein and this young girl. He's trying to ferry her across this new world where like the whole world of Earth has become this fantastical place in the wake of whatever happened at the end of BPRD. I don't know, I haven't read it. And but there's this creepy creature chasing them. They're trying to cross the sea, and there's mermaids in the sea, but there's this great great beat that the mermaids have actually already died, but their souls won't leave their bodies because they're so connected to staying. And so they're rotting, like, and the souls can't sustain them anymore because they've already died. And Frankenstein, who himself, of course, has a strange soul body problem and decaying problem, is like, you gotta let it go. I'm telling you, this is not a way to live. So it was very, very somber and slow. And it flashed back to a little slice of Hellboy, which is always very exciting. I like it. I don't love it. And I have so many questions that this comic seems unwilling to answer about the world, but I guess they just expect me to catch up. It's just funny to me how, like, not new reader friendly the Hellboy stuff is. To me, who's, like, pretty into just jumping in midstream, even for me, I'm like, I do not know what is happening in these books, but I do think the quality's high. Ooh, really like the colors from Clem Robbins. Okay. Super Drop saying, Hellboy comics are not fun comics. They're good, but they're not fun. Yeah, I'm feeling that deeply. And then AS ordered Frankenstein, but hasn't received it yet. Hellboy universe is very subtle. I'm a big fan. Yeah, I think AS, by the way, hello. I don't know if I said hello to you earlier. I enjoy the subtlety, actually. And I think that's why I stick with it, because so many comics, if they were this slow, they would just be slow. Like, so many comics do slow, but they don't do subtle. And I'm like, well, that's boring. Whereas this is slow and subtle, and there's always something for me to, like, react to or have a feeling about, and I really relish that. So I read a number of free comic book days because, fun fact, I waited long enough to do the show that they started popping up on Comixology and on Marvel Unlimited. Usually, not every company puts their free comic book days out digitally. I only read ones that seemed like they had original story content that was not just excerpted or was going to be repeated. So this first one was The Amazing Spider-Man and Ultimate Universe, but really it was kind of just like the whole Spider line. So the first story in this was just a totally random Peter Parker Spider-Man story written by Joan Kelly, the current ongoing writer. Art from John Romita Jr., which was fine. I do think that Scott Hanna on inks, and this is Marty Grash on colors, which I do not love. I mean, it looked rough. There are lines on this page that looked rough, but it was okay. It follows up a plot from Amazing Spider-Man #1 about what's going on with Norman Oswald and Spider-Man kind of chasing down the second lead, apart from the main lead that he's chasing down in the Rhino A plot. It was okay, but I don't think anything about the story would have made me go like, ooh, I've got to go run to pick up this comic book. The second story, which was an introduction to Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion, the crossover between Miles and the new Ultimate Universe, written by Cody Ziegler with Dennis Camp, art from Jonas Sharp, colors from Brian Valenza, letters from Joe Camargo, also lettered the first one. This was great. I loved it. I loved Maker just dropping into Miles, but Miles doesn't remember Making anymore. Maker says, I'm your brother. We're the only two survivors of a dead universe, Miles. The only living children of gods erased from history. Except Jimmy Hudson is still out there. So he's the third brother who's the third survivor. But I do think that's the only other Ultimate person who's still out there from the original universe. But just, I loved how quiet this art was. Like, it just really felt like Jonas Sharp's art pulled me in a little bit. It wasn't like this shiny, bombastic art, and Brian Valenza did not color it that way. I loved this recap of all of the crazy shit that has happened to Miles Morales in the past year. This not only made me want to keep reading and start reading this new series, it made me want to go back and reread past Miles Morales stuff, which I think is the perfect thing for a free comic book story to do. And then there's this third story, which is really just a series of one-shot images from each of the ongoings. Joe Kelly's Amazing Spider-Man, Al Ewing's All New Venom, Charles Soule's Eddie Brock Carnage. Cafu did all of the art, and I love Cafu. I'm an easy mark, especially when he's colored from Frank Dermata and lettered by Clayton Cowles. And it basically just showed us that, like, all three of these plots are going to intermingle at some point. We're going to have, like, a full Spidey line and symbiote line crossover. I'm in. I mean, not just because of Cafu's art, it just intrigued me. I like that they're on a crash course for each other. It feels motivated. It feels natural. So ultimately, I'm positive on this free comic book day, even if the Spider-Man A story was kind of meh. But Georgie Chimchon was saying, Ultimate Universe, these free comic book day issues get more disappointing every year. See, I don't know if I've read them many previous years, so often I wind up going back to read them when I realize where they go in a guide. This might be the first year I've ever read them as they have come out. Jamie C47 dropped out, but he's back. And then also, no spoilers. I don't want to know about what you think about the issues newer than this. No, I'm not, like, angry at you, but truly, no. I really, even though Imperial came out last week, and I do want to read Imperial so I can join in the discourse, I just got to catch up. That's got to be the carrot on the stick dangling in front of my nose for me to catch up. The next free comic book day issue was Conan, Scourge of the Serpent by Jim Zub, with art here by Ivan Gill, colored by Yao Canola, and letters from Richard Starkings and friend of Near Mint Condition Tyler Smith. This was frigging extraordinary. I'm at a loss. I'm like speechless for how good Jim Zub is at Conan, and I am a Jim Zub fan from way back. Like, I liked Wayward. I've always liked Jim Zub, but his facility with Conan, with the narrative of Conan, with the way that the narration like comments on Conan's successes and failures and pros and cons, it's so good. It's so readable, and I love, and I've said this before, I love a Conan book that treads the line between grounded and supernatural, where like the thing he's hunting is supernatural, but he's not in this magical witchy world. It's always about the artifact. This is great. He like breaks into this place looking for treasure. There's no treasure there, but he's going to kill the person who, like, is the owner of this house. And he's like, wait, but there's a mission you could go on. There'll be a lot of treasure. And I like also how Conan jumps around in the timeline of Conan, but it doesn't really matter. Like, you don't need to sit down and, like, plot out the chronology, because each story tells you where you are. The story's like, we're in a point of his life where he's doing petty crimes. I'm like, great, that makes sense. This was extraordinary. It just made me more excited than I already am to keep writing Conan. And it tickled that this artifact that he's on the hunt for is actually going to trickle through all of the different timelines of all the Robert E. Howard books, which I think is very, very clever. And hopefully Titan will do that a little bit better than Marvel, which kind of did it, but like wanted to then associate it with the Marvel universe. I think Titan's going to do a better job. Love this. It's $0.00 on Amazon right now. Go and get it and discover why I am so obsessed with Conan comics. Oh, I did more pages. The colors on this page. I love the motivated lighting, the glow of the fire, but then it's also like glinting. There's this like brazier of charcoal, then it's glinting off of the gold of the thing on the wall, and then this guy's armor. It's just, and I love how rough this art is. If you go in deep on the line work from Ivan Gill, like it's not all totally resolved. So it's a little sketchy. It almost reminds me of Daniel Warren Johnson in that way, that like when you go in tight on Daniel Warren Johnson's artwork, it's loose. Like there are lines that are just giving you the suggestion of shading, the suggestion of a muscle or something. And I think that this has a really similar quality. I just was obsessed. This was DC's new material for Free Comic Book Day in their DC All In 2025 special edition. This cover is kind of hideous, and I actually found a lot of the art in the Superman story was downright hideous. It's by Raphael Albuquerque, who's usually pretty good, but oh boy, was he drawing bad this week. And also I think the coloring was pretty bad by Marcelo Mayo, and it was written by Dan Slott. Undecided. I do think I don't understand the shading. I don't understand why it's so green. I don't understand why his chin is so white. Like, I understand that it's a reflection. I just don't understand why you'd make that choice. It looks bad. I don't understand the way his face was drawn. I just think that the art, there's not like technical problems with it. Like, it's, the figure work is there, the musculature is there, the panels are paneling. I just thought it was hideous. The story is very basic. It's basically Dan Slott being like, Superman leaves the Daily Planet to fly around and do stuff in Metropolis. It's like the lowest possible difficulty Superman story, and it's meant to get you excited for Dan Slott's run, which I do think it does, because it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger where Superman encounters something that he thinks is going to be an easy thing for him to do, and it turns out to be not so easy. But I hope this is not the art team that's going to be on Dan Slott's run, because I truly think it was unbelievably hideous. So that's 60 seconds on the first story. Then this second story. Woo boy. It was by Jeff Lemire, which made me think I wasn't going to like it, but the art is by Giuseppe Camuncoli with finishes by Stefano Nessi. I love Camuncoli's art, so that was an easy win. Colored by Romulo Fajardo Jr., whose colors I love, letters by Tom Napolitano. And this is the first time in the past, I guess it's been like 8 months that the Absolute Universe has existed, where we got a linking story to remind us that all of these Absolute characters are happening in the same world as each other, and that their decisions might be affecting each other, and that their lives are going to be linked eventually. Are we going to eventually have an Absolute Justice League? And it's being done through a very, very cool take on Mirror Master. So we get basically one page with each of the heroes. We get Batman and Gotham, and then we also get a brief passage of Wonder Woman, who is just drawn absolutely spectacularly, but credit to Hayden Sherman because partially it's just that this character design is so incredible. This rehyped me. I've been getting a little soft in some of the Absolute Universe stuff because really, for me, the only standout has been Absolute Superman, and so this kind of, it's not that I'm needed to know that they were connected to feel excited. It was just like, it just reminded to only do one page on each character and really like get to the heart of the cool thing about that character on each page. It just kind of like, it was a refresh that I needed. So did this Free Comic Book Day issue succeed? I think that it did, because the Superman story was, hey, whatever, but at least it gave you like a very classic grounded Superman story, and then it had this fantastic introductions to the Absolute Universe. Great job. So this one, the Free Comic Book Day Energon Universe one-shot, is not out yet. Oh, by the way, people did make a comment. Saturday Morning Fan said, kind of feels like late 90s on that Superman cover. Yeah, I could see that. This really square Superman coming at you through the cover. I feel what you're saying there. I smell what you're cooking. Okay. Where were we? Oh, Energon Universe specials. Skybound actually releases these, I think, to pay for after Free Comic Book Day. So this will pop up, I think, like in a month on Amazon, and then they'll also do like a $5 version that you can buy that I think has some extra content. So this one was not available digital, and I did not read it, but they're past couple of years they've always done that with, and then they do get collected along with the collected editions, and they usually have 3 stories, one for G.I. Joe, one for Transformers, one for Void Rivals. So we'll see if they do that for this one as well. Now we come to Fantastic Four Free Comic Book Day, which also had a giant size X-Men issue. Now I am historically a hater when it comes to Humberto Ramos's art. However, I really like him colored by Edgar Delgado, and I thought that they were extraordinary on Strange Academy. So I'm like, okay, I'm holding some space for them. I'm willing to be convinced that they could work for Fantastic Four. I don't love how he draws faces, but I just think that his figure work has gotten a lot more solid. Like these figures have so much more heft than Humberto Ramos's figures used to, and I do really love Delgado's colors rather. This was a fun issue. I mean, it was back to the thing that Ryan North is very good at, which is kind of just putting the team in these fun super science situations, and then they solve the science and then they go away. That's what made the first 3/4 of his Fantastic Four one really good before we've hit this what is it called when you're playing and it's shaking around, turbulence that is happening in the run right now. It kind of makes me wonder though, why are we relaunching? Because currently the plot of Fantastic Four seems to suggest they're all going to lose their powers, but then they're just seeming to be their normal happy family self here, and this is meant to preview the relaunch. So they're going to get their powers back and just be fine? It definitely left me with a question. So from the potential of like getting me interested in the new series, I think it did. I think I was less interested before, both on the current quality of Fantastic Four and also the art team, which I don't always love, but now I'm kind of into it. Jamie C47 says, I think Ramos has gotten much better than he was when he first hopped on Spider-Man. Still not a fan. Yeah, I think that sentence could come out of my mouth. I just think there's a certain vibe on a comic book that he works best with. I do not know that is Fantastic Four, but I like his it used to be he was an instant drop. Like I would just not even look at the pictures in an issue with the Humberto Ramos art. I literally would just read the dialogue balloons and get through it as fast as I possibly could because I hated his art so much. Now I will stop and linger and enjoy it. And again, I think it's because he's just really gotten more consistent with his physicality. But there was another story in here, a story that looked beautiful. It was drawn by Ivan Coelho with colors from Brian Reber, letters by Clayton Cowles. And it's basically just like the first training session that the X-Men had with each other after Giant Size X-Men, and it was fun because it showed us this very fun, confident, cocky Cyclops, which of course is ahistoric. That's not how he really was at that point. But then I realized it's because it's written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly. Have I had a bigger fall from grace for any writers than I've had from Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly in the past couple of years? I'm not sure, because they were really a sure bet for me up through like the end of 2023, and I think that they've just been writing utter dog shit for the past year. I don't know if I know one of their apartments burnt down. That's horrible. I would never wish that on anybody. I can't imagine. I think I would be in a coma after that because I value my physical possessions so much. So, I'm sure they're good people and I'm sure their lives are hard, but boy, is their writing terrible. And then to learn that this is going to turn into all these Miss Marvel, giant-sized Miss Marvel going through the history of the X-Men one-shots. Kill me now. And end my reading life now so I don't have to read this utter bullshit. I would think this story is terrible even if it wasn't by them. But by them, here's the thing though, they are very good at continuity. They're very, very good at paying close attention to continuity. I think part of their problem, which I noted repeatedly on The Outsiders, is they let that continuity sense take the place of writing an interesting story, which also happened in their Thunderbolts issue in this release week. So this gave me bad feelings. Bad feelings about what's to come for X-Men. Then there's this very funny couple of pages Chip Zdarsky comic. I love when Chip Zdarsky draws his own art. It was very, very funny. It ended with a gag about how much Chip Zdarsky and these characters in this comic hate Paul. It just was so funny. And I love that it's just like tidied away in this free comic book day issue. Lance, I see your question, but that is way too big for me to tackle in between issues. Plus, we're about to start talking about Star Wars, which you love. So this was Star Wars Free Comic Day, highlighting all three of the major new Star Wars series, which are in 3 different time periods, one for each trilogy. I kind of like that. So the first one was called Past His Prologue. This is by Alex Segura with art from Phil Noto, who I love, coloring himself here. The letterer throughout the issue was Clayton Cowles. Unfortunately, Alex Segura wrote it. Some people are enjoying Alex Segura, which is a thing that I can say because some people are. It's going to be rough for me as a Star Wars fan in this upcoming year with Alex Segura writing their ongoing series. I don't think he's a particularly interesting writer. Then we come to this middle story, which is The Legacy of Vene by Charles Soule, which happens actually right after Return of the Jedi, but it's actually like a prelude to his Legacy of Vader book that he's doing with amazing art by Luke Ross. This was incredible. I was so hooked. I was like so wrapped. I love this Vene, this assistant to Vader, who's like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep up maintaining Vader's legacy until he comes back, because he's like, there's no way Vader could die. Brilliant story. If you haven't read it, go get this on Amazon. Read it if you love Vader, if you love Charles Soule. Brilliant. Loved it. Then we have a story from Mark Guggenheim, which is absolutely a part and actually advances the plot kind of a lot of his Jedi Knights book. Is by the actual artist of that Jedi Knights book, Madek Musabekov, which, can we talk about another topic for a second? Marvel released this week their new Stormbreakers, which is basically the artists that have gone Marvel exclusive, that are like new to being Marvel exclusive, they want to promote. There are a bunch of people that have been Marvel exclusive for 20 years. Gorohiro is one of them. I love Gorohiro, but do we need to know that Gorohiro, that there's 2 of them, that they are a Stormbreaker? No, that like we knew that knew that already. Meanwhile, they have people like Fareed Karami and this guy, Madek Musabekov. Good, sweet, dear Jesus, his art is still so good. Colored here by Luis Guerrero. Why is he not a Stormbreaker? Hopefully because he didn't take an exclusive comic contract from Marvel and he's still drawing everywhere else. But they should be trying to lock this guy up. This is, when Marvel does Stormbreakers, this is what I want to see. I want to see up and coming people who are crushing me at how good they are. Yeah, so this Free Comic Book Day was great. It sold me on 2 of the 3 books in the line, and I don't think there's anything Alex Segura could do to sell me anything. I don't think he could sell me toilet paper, and I actually really like to stockpile toilet paper after the pandemic. Charles, there's my pull quote. How do I feel about Alex Segura's writing? Kill me now. I'm sure he's a very nice person. He seems like a really nice guy. I just don't like his writing. And also I do want to say hello to Piet Jeskra. I can't say that. I'm so sorry. Saying midnight greetings and glad to see me back. Yes, I'm trying to catch up. The thing is, to catch up, I'm going to have to read like 60 extra books one week. There's going to be a week that I have to read 120 books if I'm ever going to catch up. So this might be the week. I don't know. I have family visiting from outside of the country for the first time in 6 years in a few weeks. So that's not going to be a catch-up week. So I basically have 3 weeks to try to do some catching up. Okay. Ghost Box. Y'all, I don't know how much harder you need me to pimp this comic book to convince you that you need to go on Comixology, and if you have Amazon Prime, it's just free there. This is classic Vertigo feel from Mike Carey, who does not write duds. The art, letters, and not colors by Pablo Raimondi is mind-blowing, and then colored by Jose Villarruba, who's one of the best in the business. I love this because it resolved it in a satisfying way. It was big, it was shocking, and it made me immediately be like, give me 100 issues of this. Also, there's tons of angel peen in this book, which is kind of funny because usually I feel like angels are depicted as being as being asexual, and there's a big joke in Kevin Smith's Dogma, right? That they don't have genitals, but this angel, he's got some peen, and we see it throughout the issue. I mean, it's very vaguely drawn. It's not going to scare you away from this book. Just this landscape, these colors. I mean, I've sold this issue to you for 5 issues, or this comic book to you for 5 issues now, but the whole point is there's this artifact, it's a ghost box, and anybody who dies near it gets stuck in the internal landscape of it, but it also means that they can help out and occasionally inhabit the person who's wielding the ghost box. But because this ghost box, how is it made? What immortal magic would form a box that could capture souls and contain them in sort of a miniaturized, bounded version of heaven inside of the box? What would need to exist to create that? And what would the forces of evil, or like devils, do to be able to access the magic? It's this portion of heaven. All of those are addressed in this issue. I love this book. Please go and give it a try, especially if you like classic Vertigo, especially if you like Mike Carey. Guys, there are so many books this week. Oh my gosh. This was the, I think, final Silent Mission G.I. Joe book. This one's Duke, G.I. Joe Silent Missions, which is in the Real American Hero line. This one was written and drawn by Wes Craig, who, of course, Wes Craig's Kaya. Kaya is one of my favorite comic books right now, colored by Jason Wordie. This was unqualified the best of all of the Silent Missions. This is the one I'd recommend. Wes Craig is such a stunning storyteller. This is the one, for me, out of all 5 of them, that clearly was silent. I mean, there was gunfire, but we needed no dialogue here. A lot of the other ones, there was clearly dialogue happening, and we just didn't hear it. This one was a silent mission. His storytelling is this layout is so amazing. Duke, it's almost like his eyes seeing these Crimson Vipers and then it turning red as he shoots them, but then returning fire. Like every page, the level of storytelling here was just so good. And I like a violent G.I. Joe book. I don't want them to become like murder fetishists, but they're the armed forces. And especially with Vipers, like I don't mind seeing some Vipers die. This had everything I like about G.I. Joe. It had everything I like about a silent issue. It had everything I love about Wes Craig's art. Really came very close to being my Image pick of the week, but there were just 2 other Image books that just knocked my socks off. But this was extraordinarily book. Good. It was extraordinarily book. Oh, Jesus. Okay. John loves Mike Carey, so he should definitely check out Ghostbox again if you have Amazon Prime. It is free. Jeremy is late and missed me losing my damn mind about Conan Free Comic Book Day about 5 minutes ago. D. Marcel saying hello again. Brendan Riley telling a Dogma story. I just went to see Dogma on the big screen. Oh, right, because it re-released this week for the anniversary release. Holy hell, what a great film. My favorite from Kevin Smith. Yeah, I revere that film, but we all know I love Heaven and Hell stuff, and I love jokey Heaven and Hell stuff. So for me, that was like peak. Wade Dark Beast Silent Issue was literature. I don't know what that was. Okay. We're not even to the M's. I can't even take a break yet. Giant Size Wacky Racist from Dynamite, I did not read. Godzilla vs. America, Godzilla vs. Los Angeles, I did not read, although 100% of the proceeds from this went to support the communities affected by the California wildfires, which I think is amazing. I'm just not a hugest Godzilla fan. I decided to skip Godzilla vs. Spider-Man, which is funny because it's by a creative team that I would probably enjoy, but that Godzilla vs. Hulk book made me so angry that I'm like, I'm dropping this. It's non-continuity, so I don't need to read it. I'm dropping it. But James has some brief thoughts, which he will share with you, which is that I had a blast with this. Joe Kelly was on fire. It feels like Spider-Man and Deadpool was merged together, breaking the fourth wall. I mean, the third wall would just be a wall somewhere in the book. The jokes were excellent. Okay, and then Jamie is taking me to task for not reading Giant Size Wacky Races. The thing is, I don't have a relationship with Wacky Races as a Hanna-Barbera property the way I do with a lot of the other properties. So I just don't, like, nothing about it is like, ooh, there's no nostalgia button there for me. It doesn't mean it's not good. So if you're telling me that it's really good, maybe I should read it. But like, I don't, with other books, I'm like, oh, I know who the Silverhawks are. I know who Thundercats are. And so like, I'll try it out. But for this, it's like really easy for me to skip. And then Cult Dog, hello to you as well. Wow, all sorts of people dropping in later in the stream today. Got to get it done before the Tony Awards start. Cult Dog saying that he really enjoyed it as well. Godzilla vs. Spider-Man. Maybe I'll read it. Jeez. Gosh darn it. Okay. Let's continue. I don't read The Goon. There's just so much Goon to Goon, and I'm not ready to Goon all day reading The Goon, so I haven't caught up on that. I did read The Graveyard Club. I'm so sorry that I did. Here's the thing. I, of course, have nostalgia for R.L. Stine. I grew up reading R.L. Stine, and Christopher, I almost said Christopher Priest, but no, there was a Christopher somebody who was also a scary kids book writer. This, it turns out, was a sequel to an existing original graphic novel. This was long. It was a graphic novel. It was like 60 plus pages. It had really kind of cool art by Carola Borelli and Francesco Segala on colors. They didn't credit a letterist. Letterist. I'm just making up new words. But I didn't understand the point of the plot, partially because then I realized I missed reading an initial one. Basically, there's these kids in this community where spooky stuff happens, and the kids are horrible. Like, they like do graffiti and they break into places and they let the cops chase us around. Something might be found to take our place. Hey, jealousy. Big ginger blossom stand in this house. Yeah, I thought it was dumb. Okay, so Grimm, I dropped this. I was actually catching up on it, and I was really enjoying the first arc, and I was enjoying the second arc, and I was like, wow, this is where Stephanie Phillips is great, and I love Flaviano's art, Rico Renzi color, awesome. Then we got past issue 10, and the book just totally sucked, and it's again, talking about writers where I feel like something must have happened in their personal life to like change them. Stephanie Phillips, I used to love Stephanie Phillips back in 2018, 2019. I loved the first 2 years of Grimm. It turned into utter crap, and it's a plotting issue. Like, it was so fun and cool at the beginning, and it was about heaven and hell and the Grim Reaper, and then it just totally loses the plot for like 10 issues and just tells these little vignettes about side characters, and things are happening in the book and you can't even figure out why, and that, like, it just stopped making sense. And after 8 issues of catching up on it where it didn't make any sense, I'm like, I'm sorry, I do not have time to get angry about this. I have other Stephanie Phillips comics to get angry about. Christopher Pike, that's who it was. Christopher Pike. Thank you very much. Okay. I loved Christopher Pike. See, I dropped Grimm, which is funny because I loved the first 2 arcs so much that I was like, wow, this is an indie book that I'm so into that I'm going to keep reading, but I was just made so angry. And it's a shame because the art is amazing, but boy, did I grow to hate it, and so I dropped it. I was kind of excited to read a new Heavy Metal number 1, which is a legacy number 321 of classic magazine. But then I saw it was 200 pages. Now, this is coming from me who used to read Rolling Stone cover to cover every single week, which was 200 pages. I don't got that kind of time in my life right now. And then also I saw that one of the writers in it, of one of the main stories, was Alex Segura. I'm like, no, thank you. We'll read it some other time. Okay. Hellhunters ended. It ended. This is the final issue. Issue number 5, written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, art by Adam Gorham, colors from Frank Martin, letters by Travis Lanham. I mean, this was kind of like, whatever. Like, the magic guy in the team gave all the familiar characters we know in the team, like Logan and Bucky and Peggy Carter, devil powers, and then they fought the devil Nazis. I mean, it just was... The thing is, I liked this series a lot better than its story probably deserved, because I just liked the concept of this Ghost Rider in World War II. I would follow that. Like, I was less interested in the Logan, the Captain Carter, the Bucky of it all. I was way more interested of this Ghost Rider that is a killed U.S. Armed Forces soldier who is going to, I think he was U.S., right? Or was he? Yeah, I think he was. That is like going to basically go around and like take these Nazis to task. That to me was really fun. But you know what? It was fun. It turned out to be like a fun, fizzy, action, horror, magic book that, as Cult Dog points out, will make good action figures, and I think that's fine. And I think, honestly, any book that you can set and pass continuity that actually feels like it's part of a larger world, and it's not just like being set there to let somebody write 5 issues, but it's like actually like, wow, there's more to see. Any book that does that, I think, is successful. This is another one of these comics that I didn't really take heed of when I was making my pull list, and then I went back through to get all the covers, and I read the description. I was like, you moron, you were gonna love this book. So the description is: a zombie punk seeks revenge while coming to terms with their new life as invisible monsters ask for aid in a genre queer horror comedy. So clearly I would love that, and I will go and try to seek it out. Next, we come to How, which I don't read from a Ahoy comic, and then It's Jeff. I mean, It's Jeff is just pure delight. I don't understand why you wouldn't be reading it if you have Marvel Unlimited. In this one, Jeff does some baking. Look at him in his little apron. Look at him in his little apron. So cute. Okay. Then we come to Jim Henson Presents, and you may recall that I had major beef in this earlier in the year because it paired a very adult story with like Fraggle Rock and Dark Crystal stories. This issue had 4 stories in it. It was pretty good, but I still don't understand who this is for. So this initial Dark Crystal story, the faces look weird, but that's because the faces of these little things, Gelflings or whatever they called, look weird. Really good. Written by J.M. Lee, illustrated by Nori Rutherford. I love the illustration. The colors from Angel D. Santiago were great, but I just didn't understand the point of this story. Like, it was just about 2 of these little Gelflings, and they're in love with each other, and one of them sees the future. And I'm like, okay, this would be fun to read if there was a whole Dark Crystal series, if there was like a whole Dark Crystal anthology book. But I read this story and got interested in these characters, and that's it. I don't understand. Then we had a hilarious story about Ludo and Ambrosia's and the world of Labyrinth. It just put a smile on my face. This one worked better for me as an anthology story, written by Karina Becco, who's usually pretty reliable, and illustrated and colored by Ornella Greco, because it didn't require me to want to keep reading in this world. It added something to the existing world of Labyrinth. It got in, it got out, and it stood on its own. As opposed to this ongoing Dark Crystal story written by Shauna McGuire, illustrated by Contandra, and colored by Valentina Pino, I really like the art. It's so cool. I just don't understand the script. Like, I don't understand where it's going or what. It's trying to parallel a Skeksis with, I forget what those other creatures are called, with the arms, and they're big and they're slow, but it's trying to parallel the 2 of them in parallel paths, and I feel that, and I get that. But the narrative is just so, like, vague and messy, and I know that Shauna McGuire is probably trying to give it, like, a dreamlike quality, but I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And, this little Fraggle Rock story, I'm sorry, I gave the wrong credits. Labyrinth was written by Lila Sturgis, who I love, illustrated and lettered by Elizabeth Torque, colored by Valentina Pino. This is the Karina Becco story. This was so friggin' adorable, because Fraggles eat doozer buildings, and they taste like what? Radishes. Loved it. So this actually is probably my favorite issue of Jim Henson Presents, and I can appreciate that there's not enough juice in the market to like sustain a whole Fraggle comic and a whole Dark Crystal comic. I just wish they would decide if they're going to do this Dark Crystal universe and do stuff in the universe of Dark Crystal, like to just do it. Give us a Dark Crystal miniseries. I just feel like the Dark Crystal stuff could exist separately from this other stuff, and it would be fun. It would build the world, and I would enjoy it. Okay. I didn't read John Carpenter's Tales of Science Fiction. I did not read Kaiju Cooking, which is a manga. I did not read Kid Juggernaut because it recollects existing issues of Marvel Voices that I just need to go back and read. But it did come out as a physical issue, which I think is very cool when they put out physical issues of things that originally were digital. I did not read The Legend of La Rosa Blanca, who is just about naked on this, except for a little bit of water. I have to say, you know how some people don't have like an inner monologue, or they can't do pictures in their head? Those are 2 different conditions, actually. I have an inner monologue, which you're hearing outside right now, and I can picture things in my head. In a similar way, I don't find illustrations sexy. Like, I know that some people really like their cheesecake comics, and they see this and they're like, ooh, a lady with water. I have a really hard time finding illustrations to be sexy. So when people are really into like cheesecakey comics for the cheesecake of them, which a lot of my friends and commenters are, I'm just like, but why? It's an illustration. But maybe that's a failure of imagination on my part. Which is just really funny, because then people will accuse me of liking cheesecake stuff for the cheesecake quality, like because of Greg Land or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't find it sexy at all. I just like, the reason I like this cover is because it's the human figure. Like, it's good figure work. Anyway, just the thought I was having. Lost Fantasy. This was my Image pick of the week. So Kurt Peters has done a few different series for Image, Youth, which I really enjoyed. The thing is, he does let me down in the end. I never really like his ending, but you know what? The stories are so thought-provoking and so interesting that I actually have learned to just kind of ride the wave and dislike the ending if I'm going to dislike the ending, and be fine with that. It reminds me a lot of Alice Cott, who's one of my favorite comic book writers. So this, I love this so much. I have to pitch you on. I have to get you to read it. So there's fantastical creatures coming up from below the earth, like Mole Man style, to plague the earth. And they're monsters, and they're going to be violent, and it's going to be bad. And so there's this group of heroes, some of which who are from that beneath earth, or some of which are just magical or understand it, who are willing to hold them off. And they've been willing to hold them off for over a century. This started in the era of World War I. And so countries all around the world have a secret treaty with these heroes who are going to do their best to keep these creatures hidden. So it's got major something is killing the children vibes, in that there's like a secret society who is keeping the monsters away. But the monsters are not just like scary horror are monsters. They're like fantastical monsters, and the heroes are not so much a secret society, but almost like a defenders. They're almost, it's almost like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. The art here by Luca Casalanguida is so good. I love how elemental and plain and kind of carved out of lines it is. I like the very plain, flat colors by Mark Dale, colors by Michael Myers, letters by Michael Myers, who I always enjoy. I love this fight with this sword, which is meant to be disorienting, and as he's slashing with the sword, the page layout gets slashed up. Basically, we have this one hero throughout the issue. We're flashing back to how this hero became one of the defenders of the world, and it just really worked for me. Like, I want to read more of this story. I'm fascinated by it. I can tell you right now, when issue number 2 comes out, or when I get to it, because I'm sure it probably already came out, I will absolutely be rereading issue number 1. If you like those influences that I named, or that concept that I talked about, or if you've never read a Kurt Piera's number 1 before, please check this out. He's a fantastic comic book writer. This also had a backup story that was like one of his other properties that I had not read yet, so I actually just skipped the backup story because I'll catch up on it at some point. Some questions in here that are not just about these comics. I'm trying to get to the end of the M's. This is Mark Spears Monsters. I don't read that. This is Marvel Meow. So I had never read this particular Marvel digital comic book before, and so I caught up on a bunch of it for this. What's funny is this is the shortest of all the Marvel digital comics. Sometimes it is literally like 4 panels. So it doesn't really even have enough to have like a gag or a punchline sometimes. Sometimes it is just like 4 pictures of cats, which is fine. This issue 25, which is, it's always written and drawn by Nao Fuji. This actually had some narrative, and so I actually really like this the best of all the issues that I read, because Gwenpool brings her various pets, including Jeff the Land Shark and this adorable little pig that she has in a Gwenpool costume, to Deadpool's house, who has a Deadpool mouse and a Deadpool cat, and then also Princess, who's actually, so it kind of like flirted with continuity a little bit, but that's not why I liked it. It just had more of a story and had more panels, and also their version of Gwenpool is so adorable that I just thought it was great. So this is free, Marvel Unlimited, as is Marvel Rivals. And again, I don't play this game because I the other day, I was sitting on my couch and I looked across the room at our Switch. We don't have a Switch 2, we just have a Switch 1. Because I only play Super Nintendo games. So what is the Switch 2 going to do for me? I just had this longing moment of like, I wish I had enough time to I just want to play 25 minutes of Secret of Mana. I just want to, but I just don't have the time right now. So which is to say, don't play video games. This is by Paul Aller, who I always really enjoy, with art from Daniel Scalise, colors from D. Cuniff, and letters from Joe Sabino. And this is basically introducing some of the characters that have been introduced in Marvel Rivals recently. So it's got Emma Frost, it's got Ultron, they're fighting on Krakoa, which I guess must be one of the maps there. It's so good. Emma, this is one of the best Krakoa stories I've ever read. If you like Krakoa, you need to go and read this issue right now. Immediately, do not pass go. Issue number 10. Emma and Captain America are in a fight about if the resurrection cradle should be destroyed. Emma thinks it should be destroyed because it can't fall into the hands of and her thing is like, that if you think mutants are oppressed now, what if all of our genetic material and all of our history were in the hands of this evil robot? And Cap's like, I defend everybody, so I'm going to defend mutants, but it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And it's great because I love when people write Cap as like having an opinion on mutants. I want to see more of that in general, but also I love that they're not on the side you would think they would take. And I love this philosophical argument that threads through some really fun action throughout the book. It's good Krakoa. Clearly, Paul Aller should have been writing a Krakoa comic because this was incredible. Also, I love Superjob that I never, until this moment, got that Marvel Meow is Marvel now, but Meow, I just got the joke. Just got the joke. Okay, and then I don't read My Little Pony, and we finally got to the end of the M's. Sweet Jesus. Okay. Now I can go back for some of your other comments before we continue, although not that long, because this is already almost the 2-hour mark. All right, so if you have questions and stuff, you can ask me, but we cannot let this go more than 10 minutes. So I'm just going to scroll up and try to get some of your comments that were not specific to the books. John Paul's asking, can't I find drawn characters beautiful either or the sexy thing? No. I absolutely find them beautiful. I just think it's interesting that some people clearly, when they see a beautiful character of any gender on the page, they'll be like, oh, that's hot, or like, oh, I wonder if there's like a B version of the cover where we can see the nipples, like, or the peen or whatever. Like, I don't understand why it's a drawn character. Just picture what the nipple looks like. It's a drawing. So that I don't know. Maybe it's like a neurodivergent thing. I could not explain to you. But yeah, I do find them beautiful. That picture of that woman was absolutely gorgeous. I don't understand people who get off on the idea. Which I'm no judgment. I'm not judging. People have many different sexual proclivities, which is going to get me demonetized. YouTube tried it. They tried to demonetize my last poll list video, I think. And I was like, look, I might say a genital word. But I don't do anything demonetized. So I appealed and it did get remonetized. So there, YouTube. So there. Lance saying, could I elaborate on my dislike for Rogue One? I actually love the concept of Rogue One. I just feel like they beat it to death in the editing bay and the reshoots, which I try not to play that like game, that above the table game of like reacting to a movie based on the things I know that happened with the movie, like a casting problem or reshoots. But it just felt choppy. Like it didn't feel like it hung together at all. It felt like there were like plots that like could have happened that didn't. It just, I just remember I fell asleep during it like 9 or 10 different times. It took me weeks of trying to watch it at night. And it's not like I'm that tired. I'm a night owl, where I just kept falling asleep over and over and over again until I finally got to the last scene. So I just think it doesn't flow for me. I will say that I've been hearing from people who watched Andor who told me that the sexual assault thing in Andor is like so brief and it's handled in a way that I would appreciate. So maybe I'm going to go back and watch Andor, but I still don't want there to be sexual assault in the Star Wars universe. I just don't think it belongs there. So who knows? Okay. Well, the one Vampirella I've read featured cosplayers at the end, which is pretty cool. Well, yeah, they're actual people. They can be sexy. Okay. Did I ever try to do the labyrinth glass balls thing with David Bowie gets the spheres in his hand and turns around? My hands are actually pretty small. Especially for somebody who's a guitar player. I have pretty small hands. So I would need I don't know if I could do it with regulation sized crystal balls. Brandon Riley says, Sal Romero, the World War II Ghost Rider from Hellhunters, made a cool appearance in Thunderbolts. Yes, in the second issue. And I really dug that. He's one of my favorite things Philip Kennedy Johnson has done with Marvel. Yeah. Jarn saying, Hellhunters was fine, but I want a Cap series being a captain in World War II so much. Yeah, it feels like, especially if we're having trouble fielding a Cap series in the present day, which I know we're getting a new one soon by Zdarsky, but like, instead of like doing one-shots or like switching to Sam Wilson or whoever, which I do really like Sam Wilson, why not just give us like a World War II Cap series for a couple of months? Like, right? Brandon Riley enjoyed Black Widow and Hawkeye miniseries by Stephanie Phillips last year. Yeah, I did actually really enjoy that. I think there's certain characters she's good at, but something about her plotting, man, just really rubs me the wrong way the past couple of years. Christopher Pike, Captain of the Enterprise, also a teen horror book reader. One of my real sadnesses is I never had my full book collection with me. You know, I was only in a room in my house when I first moved to a house where I could get some of my kids' stuff from my family. And so I took comic books, which I'm happy that I did. But I had a huge book collection that I had all the Robotech books. I had every Christopher Pike book. And I should have brought them too, but I didn't have room for them at the time. And now they're lost to me because they're in America. Probably somebody's thrown them out by now and I'll never see them again. And that's really sad. It makes me really sad. Also, I had so many G.I. Joes that I probably should have also taken, and they're gone. But you know what? Sometimes we lose things, and they are lost to us. Brendan Riley, I hit that nostalgia button today. I bought a Topics #4 comic from 1947. Wow, what's the oldest thing in your house? I mean, I have some old stuff in my house, but not that much from before 1950, because it was about the Boston Red Sox, and I live in Boston. I love little bits of zeitgeist and history in comic form. That is so cool. Fifth of Jack Gaming, hello to you, sir, saying understanding when I was talking about nostalgia and like I don't have any nostalgia for Wacky Racers, saying it was the same way with Silverhawks. No context, so I'm not reading it. Yeah, I think even as somebody who loves Silverhawks at the time, more toys that I'll never see again, that I don't know if it was enough to keep me engaged. Lance saying saw Ballerina earlier today, probably my second favorite John Wick related movie other than the first John Wick. Ana de Armas is a star. Yeah, I don't like John Wick. I don't do gun violence really. I know, you know, I'm not making a quality judgment. I just started watching the first one and I realized that it was all gun violence and it didn't even have like a cool look of the Matrix where they're in the Matrix, and I was like, not for me. And you know what? There is power in knowing something's not for you. And part of why I do this show is to try to figure out what's not for me in the current world of comics. And it's hard to draw a line between things that are not for me and things that are bad, right? Because Alex Segura, is it bad or is it not for me? I think it's bad, but so many people like him that maybe it's just not for me. But that's the fun of doing the show for me. And I like that we've all found a language to speak to each other in where we can acknowledge some things as not being not for us, but still talk about them. And then some things are bad and still talk about them. And that is really, really fun. Jamie's excited to pick up the G.I. Joe Deluxe book later this month. Yeah, I like that they're doing each Deluxe as like each pair of miniseries. And I loved that Cobra Commander miniseries. Okay, I think actually I think almost all the other comments I got at the time, except for Lance McNair saying Krisis. Since I know I don't shy away from hot button topics, who, me? Moi? I may have reached my limit with Harry Potter as a lifelong fan of. JKR said her earnings are going towards her anti-trans women's fund. Yeah, I struggle because I was a Harry Potter person in the 2000s. We lined up for the book at midnight. My kid, the person who took care of her during the day when Kid Krisis was Baby Krisis, read her all of the Harry Potter books cover to cover, and then she has since read them all cover to cover. And it's, I always say that I try to separate the art from the artist, which is different than Death of the Artist. Death of the Artist is you just don't look at what the artist's intent was and you just form your own opinion. It has nothing to do with if they're dead or not, or you're ignoring them or not. There's plenty of problematic artists that I'm willing to read stuff from. I'll read a Mark Miller comic book. I will listen to Michael Jackson music. I think the art exists as the art exists. But with J.K. Rowling, just so much of the art is influenced by her opinions, and going back and reading it now, you can see that. And I mean, that's the case for Mark Miller's comics. That's the case for some Michael Jackson songs. But just because the J.K. Rowling stuff is so... She didn't just wrong one person. She didn't abuse one person. She didn't murder one person. She's trying to oppress a group of people that only makes up like 0.6 of the population, but she's trying to make all of their lives measurably worse. For what? For what? And I'm somebody who is a feminist and has always been a feminist, and I agree there are thorny topics about women's spaces that this ongoing debate about trans people in the public life, there's no easy answer to. And I don't think it's transphobic to say that there's no easy answer to those questions. I mean, I'll just put one out that's personal for me. My whole life, and I've talked about how I feel that I'm non-binary, which is a whole other suitcase to unpack. But my whole life, I've never really felt super comfortable in men's spaces. And I always would be like, could I just go to the women's space? Like, even like, I would prefer to like go to like changing rooms that mostly were women, because I feel like threatened being in the men's space. Now I understand. It's because I just never fully understood what it was to identify as a man, which is, again, a whole other suitcase. And so, like, I would always, all of my friends in school were women. If I would go to sleepover all with girls, and they'd be like, it's fine to have Peter here, even though he's not a girl. Spoilers, sometimes maybe I am. But anyway, this is deeper than we need to get. My point being that I know that for me, the non-binary person, it makes me comfortable to be in those spaces. At the same time, I understand that me walking in as a person who to some viewers is going to be obviously male-bodied is going to make women uncomfortable. So no, I do not expect to walk into the women's changing room at the Y. But again, I'm non-binary, I'm not trans femme, so that's a different thing for me. But I'm just saying, it not affects me personally, but I understand it personally, because I understand that urge to want to reject some gendered spaces that are quote unquote for me, and to prefer to exist in other gendered spaces. And I understand that that doesn't give me the right to be in all those gendered spaces either. So it's like a tricky thing. And I understand that on some level, J.K. Rowling is trying to respond to that through the lived experience she's had as a woman. And I like completely appreciate that, but you don't have to try to make life horrible and denigrate trans people all around the world constantly to do that. Like, you can make a point about like that you have certain opinions of women in sports, or you have certain opinion about women's bathrooms, or women's social groups, or women's jails. You can make that point without saying the vile things she has said about trans women. Like, you can say trans people are great and I love them, but also I have these other concerns. There's a way to do that. And I just wish, if she was the feminist that she said she was, I wish she would find a way to thread that needle, because approaching this conversation from that position of kindness and acceptance actually lets us get farther with those very interesting topics around gender and around feminism than approaching the conversation from a place of seething hatred, which is where most people want to follow from. If you are not as read up on trans issues, or if you want to talk more about this idea of like that it's not black and white, cut and dry, John Oliver just did a fantastic segment on this stuff about a month ago that is available, at least for me, for free on YouTube. I don't know what it's like in the States, and I would definitely recommend that you go and see that. Trans rights are human rights. Black Lives Matter. Stop deporting human beings from the United States with no due process. Okay, that was our political segment. I guess it was 10 minutes. I told you I could only take 10 minutes. Now we're doing a N through Z. Hopefully, I only drove off 5 people with that. But you know what? Okay, that's fine. I was saying to somebody from the Near Mint Discord over the weekend the whole reason I'm doing this show is to be this person and have these conversations. And I'm never going to try to browbeat you with my politics and like make you feel the way that I feel about things. That's never the thing that I'm trying to do. But I do want you to understand that this person whose comics guides you use, whose jokes you might enjoy in the Evergreen shows, thinks about these things and wants you to be thoughtful about them. And that's a huge reason I'm doing the show. So you can't have the show and not have the opinions. A couple of people said some interesting things. Super job. I think this is a good time for me to tell you that because of my recommendation, I started reading Grim Fairy Tales and all spin-offs from the start. I'm now 75 issues and yes. Do you see what I mean? How like it's like secretly good and nobody acknowledges that? It's actually the last book of the week this week is Xenoscope, so we're going to talk about it. But do you see? Can you please validate me? I desire your validation. One Wheelchair X saying, yes, Krakoa has a few maps on Marvel Rivals and it's wonderful and full of fun elements. It's got the Quiet Council Chamber, a Cerebro Cradle, and even a giant Shogo Dragon. Oh, part of me wishes I had time to play games. But have you been reading the Marvel Rivals comic book, One Wheelchair X? Lance McNair saying, yes, I do agree with the choppiness of Rogue One. It stood out. I always rewatched it after finished Andor. Tony Gilroy is always extremely reluctant to talk about the film in interviews. Hello Planet 628. I had every Robotech novel. I love Robotech. I've never really been able to get into the comic books, but the novels were so good because I had so many of the toys and I didn't understand the connection between the generations of the toys because I guess I used to watch the cartoon. I would absolutely rebuy all the novels and reread them. I would make the time. I had a huge book collection of which I only really brought Stephen Brust, who's like my favorite fantasy author, and like Douglas Adams, and so much stuff I left behind. If I had like a top 5 things that I would replace, and Mary Wells. I love Mary Wells. If I had a top 5 things I would replace, one of the top 5 would be my Robotech books. Jamie C. hasn't liked John Wick other than the first. Could have been a great standalone movie, but Hollywood had to have a franchise. Logan Wayne, the idea that a man will change their gender, a social contract in the first place, just to take advantage of women is so insane, which I agree with and is definitely the point there. And also they rarely have this energy for trans men, right? That's all you can, but it's bigger than a topic I can get into here. I appreciate why, because trans men are not pinging that feminism radar, and feminists fought so long and so hard for the rights that they have today that are still being constantly eroded, especially in the United States. So I appreciate it, but also yes, it is interesting that trans men don't have that same energy directed toward them. Okay, now we made it to the bottom. I'm really loving the hair today. It's not like the best hair ever, but it's doing this little kind of winged thing in the front that's giving me like a little bit of like Farrah Fawcett, Charlie's Angels. It makes me want to break out into Hedwig. All nights like this. Oh, I'm hoarse this morning. Hoarse. When the world's a bit a mess. One day, you're going to just turn on the stream and it's just going to be me doing Hedwig. It might happen. One day it's going to happen. I have the script book right there. I used the first few pages memorized. It might happen. Okay. I decided I don't like the Nacelle-verse, so I'm not going to keep reading the Nacelle-verse. Night of the Vampirana's. I have to say this is attractive to me. I could not find it digitally, but did Dracula bite the piranhas? Did the piranhas just form an alliance with Dracula? I need the answers. Okay. Knights. So I've been reading, this is kind of funny. I've been reading Knights, this third arc of Knights that started with issue 13, still without going back to read issues 2 through 11 or 12, because I didn't like issue 1. I love this comic book. I just think this team is so good. Wyatt Kennedy, writer, art by Luigi Formisano, colors from Francesco Segala, who's great on everything, and flats by Gloria Martinelli, and letters by Maria Letizia Mirabella. Lots of Italian people on this book. I love this comic book. But I am a little confused because I haven't read all the connective tissue. So I don't totally understand what they're all about. But so this paranormal investigator guy is taking these 2 paranormal people to investigate something out in the field, and they're trying to basically activate a fairy circle so they can go through it and get to this other place that eventually happens. This was a little bit like an in-between plot book. It kind of was just addressing how they got there, but I'm just very engaged with this book, and I really enjoy it. Okay. Ninja High School, issue number 200 from the Antarctic Press. I did not read that. NYX number 10, the final issue of this Jackson and Lansing series. This was, it was bad. It was really bad. What can I say? Francesco Mortorino's art is incredible. Colored here by Raul Angulo. I really think we found somebody really interesting with Francesco Mortorino. I'm excited to see what else he will be put on by Marvel. He's not the cover here, which is a terrible cover by Sarah Pichelli and Federico Blee. engaging all of his worst instincts. Yeah, it just made no sense. Like there were no stakes. Like it was like they were defeating Mojo, and Mojo's taken over all of New York, and they're gonna defeat him with the power of hearts and mutants loving each other. It was just bad. It was bad. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And I think is it because the series got cut off at the knees? No, because they had 10 whole issues, and a lot of the issues were bad. I just don't think it was a good comic book. It was a great premise, which is that we're gonna explore mutant culture in a world where mutant culture has been ripped from them, and the great first 3 issues. But I just felt like a real failure to know how to write stories was the problem with this comic book. This art, though, really, really love Francesco Mortorino's art. Really excited to see more of it. Then, like this page. I usually don't do splash pages, but this was great. Great colors, great art. Loved it. Shame the story didn't stand up. I'm not reading the Patchwork Girl of Oz. I tried to find Pinapocalypse digitally and could not, but I would love to read it. I am not reading Planet Comics from Antarctic Press or Planet Death because it's from Bad Idea and they don't care about digital readers, so I don't care about them. I did catch up on Planetary Expansion. This is on Global Comics, and technically issue 5 was out this week of April 30th, but they haven't put up issue 5 yet, but I hadn't read issues 2 through 4, so I just caught up on it. I really like this book. I mean, I can't compare it to like the best of the comics that we're all reading and talking about, but it clearly was like an original graphic novel they've carved up into individual issues. And I think because of that, there's a lot of focus shifting that you kind of have to like remind yourself that it used to be a graphic novel. Because the first issue was all about this one person. And so it seemed like he was going to be the main character. But in the scope of reading a graphic novel, you would understand that that was just being used as our entree into this world where there's going to be a interstellar expedition that's taking off from Earth to bring a colonizing force to try to find some other planet to live on because Earth is on its way out. I think in a graphic novel, you would understand he's just framing that story, and then we're going to meet a lot of people. In the comic book, it kind of felt like, why did we stop paying attention to him? I will say, I really like the writing by Christopher Rita. I really like the art from Alonso Molina Gonzalez. It's really pleasant. Some of the people are like a little... their faces get a little misshapen, but I tend to really like colors that have this textural quality, and Juan Pablo Montenegro is doing that. Lettered by Travis Lanham, like way to get an all pro as your letterer. Like really, I think so many indie comics actually have like a indie letterer, and letters are what communicates the story to you. It's not the place to be cheap. Like some major letterers you could easily get for your indie comics, so go get them. So I read these issues, and it basically details that what would the governments of Earth think about like this expedition leaving, and they're not going to have any more say over it, right? What would the United States think about that? What would the European Union think about that? What would the UN think about that? About people who are basically saying, see ya, like goodbye. They're not renouncing their citizenship, but they're basically saying, we're going to go and find our, destiny out in the stars. And this whole, what comes out from it is like there's all these idealists, all these scientists, everybody's put in this work, and at the last possible moment, the military of the the military of the United Nations comes through and says, is like, you can't just leave. Like, we've got to have you're still being governed by us, even if you're in space. And of course, that creates conflict. That is really, really interesting. But then by the time this swings back to focusing on our main character from issue 1, which I did really love, and by the way, some of those colors are done by a different colorist, Paulo Rivas, but very similar tone. By the time we get back to focusing on him, I've kind of lost the plot on him. Like, he's doing something nefarious on the ship. He snuck onto it. He's hiding his bag in a crawl space. He's fighting these 2 people. At that point, I had kind of like forgotten what I cared about him because I got so sucked into the wider plot of is the ship going to take off? So I think it's a really good, really interesting indie comic book. If you haven't read it on Global Comics, I highly recommend it. This is issue 5 that was meant to come out on April 30th. I think it probably did in physical, and it just hasn't hit Global Comics yet. I do notice that people are having a whole dialogue about Mojo. Mojo and Arcade are instant turnoffs for me. Hate their stories. Yeah, I do kind of feel that way about Arcade. I just don't think there's anything interesting to do with them at this point. Mojo, I like the concept of, but you need to have the amount of teeth that Louise Simonson would put into Mojo. Like, you got to have a heavy commentary angle, and I think, like all Jackson and Lansing comic books, they were trying to do that, and they were trying to reference all of Mojo's history, and in trying to do that, they kind of lost the interesting aspect of the current day plot. Okay. Genuinely, does anyone like Mojo? I do like Mojo, but again, I think to make Mojo scary, you can't just have Mojo on panel being like, I'm scary. Like, that doesn't work. Mojo has to do incredibly messed up, gleeful things where you understand that Mojo's only motivation is attention, and he has no morality. Like, nothing that he's doing, he thinks about it being good or bad. The only version of morality, his good or bad goes this way. Mojo's morality is less attention to more attention, and he doesn't even realize the other spectrum is there. When you write Mojo that way, that to me is interesting, because you can't, the X-Men are challenged by, like, you can't even apply Xavier's dream, or like all people are equal, or like you can't apply any of those tenets of what X-Men are about to Mojo, because Mojo exists on a completely different spectrum that has nothing to do with the ethics of X-Men, and that in and of itself is challenging. Like Sinister, you could just look at his ethics spectrum and like, well, Sinister is just trying to do what's good for him on that ethics spectrum, but he still understands the things he's doing are probably not good, but he's doing things that benefit him. Mojo doesn't exist on the same spectrum as Sinister, even though they use similar tactics and do similar things with cloning and stuff. So that to me is why Mojo is interesting, but you've got to go there to make a Mojo story interesting. And maybe I helped you find a Mojo story make it interesting. One Realtor X saying, did not hate it as much as he thought it was fine, but it was rushed, much like Experts. But wait, what I really wanted to hear was what was the intel on reading all of that Grimm Fairy Tales. I just saw it. Where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Super drop. On Grimm Fairy Tales. I like it. It's way more dense and lore than I expected, right? There's like a lot there. Still annoyed by all the panty shots. Yeah, like sometimes I feel like they just like kind of are like, oh yeah, some of you are here for the panties. But then like, it's just like one shot in an issue, and then the whole rest of the issue is really cool fairy tale lore. And you're like, did we need that one upskirt shot, sir? Did we really? So, but we've already established in the show that I'm asexual when it comes to cartoon characters. Okay, now we come to the Power Company. God, this was terrible. Brian Edward Hill and I just don't vibe. But here's the thing: Brian Edward Hill and I exists in a place where I can't tell if he's bad or I just don't like it. The problem I actually had with this was a framing problem. So this has the black Batman in it, who honestly, I've forgotten who he is at this point. He's from that John Ridley series, but on one side, I enjoy that they're like, he's just another Batman. The same way Miles is another Spider-Man, right? But on the other side, you can't do that in the DC universe. Batman is Batman. Clearly, if you see Batman who's black, everybody knows it's not the main Batman. And for a character that has had so little material that so many people haven't read, I don't understand how you just don't explain it a little bit. Just explain it a little bit. Because this whole issue exists on this Batman's perspective, and he's being kind of an asshole the entire time. And I think to give us a protagonist who's an asshole and not introduce us to who he is or the context about him in a one-shot issue that's picking up this character who has not appeared in a comic book for over 6 months, that is a failure of scripting. You did a bad job. That's my minute. Power Rangers Prime, I don't read, although I'm starting to appreciate Melissa Flores as a writer. The Question All Along the Watchtower, unfortunately, was written by Alex Segura. I'm sorry, he's probably a really nice person, and I hate this because I fear that you're gonna somebody's gonna clip this and like tag somebody and be like, oh, this Crisis person hates you, Alex Segura. No, you seem pretty cool. I just think you might not be for me. I don't even know what to say about this. It was utterly pointless. We spent 5 issues building up that the Question is this like cool investigator, problem solver, crime solver, but then she's got to go up against like Eradicator and Henshaw, and like clearly they're heavier hitters than her, but there's no plot left for her to do. Like clearly the only way this is going to end is by like the power of friendship, because we built a scope that's too big for our main character to participate in, and that's a problem. And it bugs me because the premise was so good, the character was good. I actually do think Alex Segura was good at writing Question herself. Cian Tormey's art is incredible. I love Romulo Fajardo Jr.'s colors, but there was just no way for this to deliver a satisfying conclusion, because you made the scope in such a way that there's no way to satisfy with the main character of this comic book. I don't read Radiant Blacks. I don't like it. I did read Red Hulk #3. This is by Benjamin Percy, art from Geoff Shaw, who I love, colors from Brian Valenza, and letters from Corey Petit. So again, first of all, this is I think, the best art I've ever seen from G.F. Shaw. And I'm a big G.F. Shaw fan. I will really check him out on just about everything. I don't know if it's him evolving. I don't know if it's the colors from Brian Valenza. It's not just Doom. I think all of the pages of this are great. The choreography is great. The paneling is great. The figure work is great. Outstanding. I don't understand how Benjamin Percy's plot for this Red Hulk comic book has so little Red Hulk. I get from a dramatic tension standpoint that he's trying to say like that Red Hulk is so powerful that we've got to make it a limited resource and we can't just have him hulking about because that like breaks the plot that he wants to do in this comic book. But I just don't understand how, like, give us a little bit more. And this made me think of X-Men Unlimited #1 from 1993 where Bishop is like, there's a limited amount of catalyst chemical radiation happening from snow melting. So if I cover myself in melting snow, I think that was from X-Men Unlimited #1. If I cover myself in melted snow, I will get a little bit of kinetic energy. I was hoping that Red Hulk was going to do that where he's like, if I let all this snow melt on me, I'll have enough radiation that I could do one Hulk punch, you know, like, I don't know. But I do really like this book. I like everything about it. I just wish Benjamin Percy, I just don't know if the common reader is going to hang on long enough for Red Hulk to appear in the Red Hulk comic book. Does that make any sense? By the way, I just almost laughed out loud while I was reading that because Super Drops a missed opportunity of a panty shot. Okay. Also, hello to JJ Tiffany, who I don't recall saying hello to yet. Okay. Now, I did not read Red Sonja versus Army of Darkness. It's by Tim Seeley, which made me tempted. I'm not a huge Army of Darkness person. I'm not a huge Red Sonja person. Tim Seeley is so reliably good. Maybe I'll go back in future weeks. I did read another issue of Robot Todd because I am on the Patreon of this creator, Farrell Dahl, which is not his whole name, and I know that, but he doesn't put his whole name on the comic book, so that's the name that he wants, and that's the name that we're going to talk about. This book makes no sense. It makes no sense, but it's so gorgeous. And the reason I have this little note on the bottom is because this is literally from his Patreon. Like, it's not available that I've seen as a digital comic, so it has like his page notations on it. It's so fascinating, but I couldn't tell you what's happening. There's a robot. There's an evil wizard who doesn't like the robot. I just like it for its storybook psychedelic quality, and I'm absolutely going to keep reading it because I love it for that. But it does not make one tiny lick of sense. And then oh no, oh no, we can't do this. Okay, hold on. I thought I was saving just one page, but I must have saved the entire PDF into my show PDF. And of course I would never steal somebody's Patreon PDF and let you read it all on YouTube. I would never, ever do that. So anyway, sorry, but I don't think I spoiled too much. Okay, next is Rockefellers. I do love that. Oh no, it happened in my credits book, in my credits PDF too. I'm such a dumbass. I probably was trying to, on a Mac, you know, you can like export from the Mac image preview reader. Anyway, you don't need to hear this. Okay, this is Rockefellers by Peter J. Tomasi, Francis Manapul, and Rob Lee. You know, I really love this book of this future family who's stuck in the present day. I love this beat where the daughter faints and they take her to the hospital and the parents are like, I've seen this medical equipment in museums. Prehistoric, simply prehistoric. Like, they're so offended by present day medical technology. I just thought that was a really fun beat. Ultimately, there's just not much to this issue. It plays this beat that their dog protects the house while they're away, which was cute, but it was just a lot of pages of like wacky hijinks of the dog tossing people around, which is fine, but it's like not the plot density that I arrived here for, but it does push forward the plot a little bit with the big reveal at the end. I do think this is probably my favorite Ghost Machine book. I love the art. It's really charming. I just think that having a whole issue of a dog like whip around a bunch of people trying to do a home invasion like only does so much, but the first 3 issues of this book are incredible. James Abel saying Rex is the dog we all need, also the eyes see everything, and family's worst nightmare is heading their way. Next is Rogue the Savage Land, another Tim Seeley book, and prepare for me to scream, but not about a reason you might typically expect me to scream. This book has had this amazing artist who's not credited here because she has a fill-in for her. And this is a 5-issue series, and it's set in past continuity. There is no reason that they need to hurry to release it. There's no pressure on the schedule. There's no crossover. It's not in current continuity. There's no reason you should have to pause to have a fill-in artist when she's going to be back in the next issue. So the regular artist who will be back in the next issue is... where is her darn name? Zulima Scotto-Levina. And her art is incredible. Why would we switch for issue 4? What did we gain? Unless she just didn't want to draw this issue for some reason. You know it's because she was like a little behind. And the art in this was okay by Von Randall. It's still colored by Rachel Rosenberg. But why? Why? This is the problem with Marvel right now. They have a 5-issue series with Rogue, who's incredibly popular, written by Tim Seeley. It fits into the Rogue period that all of the old X-Men readers know. It has sexy time biblical things drawn on it. It's all things that could make it like an easy thing to sell in trade paperback and to refer to in the future and to reprint in the future. And they screwed it up because they had to have a one fill-in artist in a 5-issue series. What is I can't even react to the plot of it because I was so angry that it was a fill-in artist in a 5-issue series. I refuse to even react to the plot of it. I've been enjoying this series so much, and this made me so angry that I couldn't even appreciate the script, even though it was actually one of the better scripts of this series. Marvel, what the fuck are you doing? That is so stupid. To have an artist who's having a breakout, high quality run on this book to the point that Zulima Scotto-Levina is doing that has such a distinct kinetic style, and to have a fill-in for one issue, just delay the issue for 30 days. She drew the next one. It could have, to be fair, it could be that she has another gig already lined up, and if she had stayed on this gig long enough to draw this issue late and then draw number 5, she would have been late for her next gig. Maybe Marvel does have her on a continuity book after this, but I would just say, screw you. Why can't I have this series drawn all by one person? Okay. It would be different if they were alternating, or if this artist was going to finish the series, or again, it wasn't that the artist was bad, and Rachel Rosenberg's killing it on the colors. It was a very attractive book. It just made me angry. I just saw this Rust Belt Review. It's kind of like a literary magazine that's a comics anthology, which is pretty cool. I did read Savage Sword of Conan. This cover, how extra is this? A vulture is coming down to eat out Conan's liver or something, and Conan holds it in his teeth. Just so extra. I saved the credits for this too small, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to read the names of the creators. So this first story, so the thing is, this is Conan quarterly, except for I think maybe it comes out monthly, but it's really a long anthology style Conan book. This first story from Dennis Culver and Chris Burnham was so good. It was just a really fun, kind of campy, pulpy. Conan tries to go on one mission, and it seems like an easy theme with Conan that we saw in the Conan book earlier today too, was to have him be mistaken about what the treasure will be. That's a really easy Conan theme to do, and they did it in this issue, and it was fun. It was good. This second story though, with writer Fred Kennedy and art from Marco Rudy, I could not tell you what the hell was going on. The writing, the art, it didn't make any sense. I just was scrolling through and I'm okay, here's a page with some black and white on it. I have no idea. Then the third story from Zach Davison with art from Max von Fafner. Really brief story. It's not Conan. It's Robert E. Howard's Cormac Fitzjeffrey, which is a totally different character. Really, really cool. Just the art, I tried to pick a page that showed it off the best, but each page was so cool. I just am who is this Max von Fafner? How can I read more stories with him? I mean, the story, it's really just a sword fight as a story, but the art was just amazing, amazing, amazing. Then this was the one to come to this comic book for. Liam Sharp writing and drawing a Conan story. You could zoom into this 100 times and there would still be new details to find. He's definitely being influenced by Barry Windsor Smith. It's a short story. It's just a quick story. Conan finds a man who is dying and they talk about if they should fight or not. It's the shortest of stories, but it's absolutely one of the best Conan stories I've ever read. Holy sweet Jesus. Just speechless. I'm literally speechless. How often am I speechless on this show for a good reason? Not often. Okay. Yeah, John, inject Liam Sharp directly into my veins. Start with Death Heads 2 and just keep pushing the injections all the way to Liam Sharp in the present day. Okay, now I've messed up all of my PDFs because I zoomed in on that one and now it's all going to be messed up. Hold on. View. Zoom to fit. Okay, that's better. This is called The Slash. No, I dropped the seasons. I gave it 3 issues. Rick Remender, I'm really rooting for you. We're all rooting for you. I'm trying to enjoy you again after years of not. But this book just did not have enough happening. Maybe in trade. I don't hate it. Just nothing's happening. I hated this. Mad Cave did not have a good week with me. The Slasher's Apprentice 1 by Justin Richards and Val Haverson, lettered by Buddy Bedouin, colored by Rebecca Nalty. Okay. Let me try to explain it in a way that might tell you why you might like it. So we see a serial killer doing some serial killing, and this girl survives. And the implication is that later she becomes a podcaster, because every serial killer book is about a podcaster now. But she is kind of into the idea of serial killers. She's like, what if I observe them closely? What if all the killing is not just a bad thing? So it basically shows how she knows who these serial killers are. Maybe it's also the same killer that killed her family. And she's like covering their tracks because she wants to have an exclusive line on seeing what they're doing. And she doesn't want them to be caught. It's hard. I mean, that's a reprehensible main character, right? Like, she's enabling murder. So you've got to give us some insight into who she is, so we like root for her a little bit. And there's just no moment to be with her. I mean, I guess the reason to root for her is that her family dies, but she doesn't seem to like them that much. She like steps right on her mother's back as she walks up the stairs. So we don't really understand who she is or root for her. And then we're supposed to like root for her. And then there's this long sequence of all these people being killed that are clearly just like throwaway characters. And I just was like, clearly they're going to die. That's the plot of this book. If you gave us more chance to find a reason to like adhere to this character and have faith in her or understand her or understand, then we would find all these people being murdered more delightful because we would be seeing it from her perspective, but it just never got there. Cool. Mr. Tex asking, not a Remender fan. Remender, and I've said this, I think, before, he's so cynical about the world, and sometimes, and I feel like I liked a lot of his books up until like 2014 or 2015, and I think the cynicism got so peak that I'm not a cynical person, even though I do hate many things, that I just couldn't like lose myself in the comics, and I kind of just thought he was not for me, and I stopped trying. And then recently I started picking up his stuff again, and I just feels like now that he owns his own stuff, and he's got his own imprint, and he can have all of his favorite artist friends come and play, and he's like, I feel like a little tiny spark of optimism in his stories that were missing before, and the stories are more interesting. And I do think the season's a good story. It's just moving too slowly for me, and I can't get excited about reading it every month and paying for it every month, but I'm happy to read it in retrospect or in collection or once it goes on Global Comics. So it's never that I hated Remender. I just, the awful cynicism of every world he created just was too much of a downer for me. But now I've kind of come around. Maybe the world got worse. Maybe I got worse. I don't know. Okay. Snot Girl, I don't read, from Brandon Lee O'Malley and Leslie Hung. Something is Killing the Children. Is this my first chance to talk about like a regular issue of Something is Killing the Children? This is a book. It's by James Tinian and Werther Dell'Erda, with colors by Mikel Murto, letters by Antworld Design. I used to relish in this book. I loved it so much. I really just look forward to it every month, even though it reads so fast. I could sometimes read an issue of this in like 2 minutes. Like, it just flies by. But I enjoyed it. And Tinian is having the same problem on this book that Stephanie Phillips, I think, is having on Grimm, which is that he's a victim of his own success. The book has become so big, so franchisable, such a hit, that he's stretched out the story like taffy, but it feels like it's about to snap. And we just have come off of a whole arc of like one-shot stories that really add nothing to our understanding of Erica Slaughter. And now we're into another flashback story, which at least is interesting because it's her house sponsor, showing her in her like very, very early days of learning how to be a White Mask. But I just think to spend 10 issues not in the present day with our character, it tells me one of two things. You've either written yourself into a corner and you're not sure how to go back to the present day, what to do with the character, or you're kind of just like playing for and like stretching out scripts that you had an idea for in a side series or one-shot series, because you know that if you go back to keep telling that story, we're going to get to the ending too soon, and you don't want to get to the ending. And like, I just see that happening here. So this was an okay issue, and it seems like we're really leading into seeing Erica go through like her first really big, really bad monster hunt, and I am interested in that, and the art is good, and the quality is as high as it has always been, but I just don't understand what issue is this? 41? 41. I don't understand how we got to issue 41 and we've spent so much time not in the present with Erica Slaughter. I just don't understand. It feels like this whole continuity between this and House of Slaughter and all the other one-shots and stuff has just come completely unmoored. Like, we're doing world building, but we've stopped telling the story of the primary world that we're all interested in at the center. Okay, I didn't read Squish and Squash from Keen Spot. Okay, here we go into a long, long period of Star Wars books. Buckle up. So, I didn't think I was going to be into this. I'm like a hyperspace story. Hyperspace stories is their code word for like, we just want to tell this one-off story, but we don't want it to be like in the main frame of continuity, even though it's still in continuity. So we're going to do it at Dark Horse instead of at Marvel. And it's not even fully all ages. So I just don't even understand. Anyway, so I didn't think I was going to like this. It's about Poe Dameron, who's like not my favorite of Star Wars characters. I loved it. First of all, Ethan Sachs, who I didn't really love on Star Wars Bounty Hunters, he just wrote a really good script. Credit where due. Really strong art from Mark Yazak, inked by Jose Marzan Jr., colored by Nicola Rigi, who I'm not familiar with, and lettered by Tyler Smith, along with Jimmy Betancourt. I just think it really worked for me because Poe, I think the best stories about the sequels show us a little bit of motivation of how the resistance became, the rebellion became what they are in the sequels, because that's clearly interesting. And I don't think we necessarily need all 20 years of that. I think it's really interesting to just show us a couple of minutes before the first movie, because the movies just didn't have time to do that. It was back on its Skywalker bullshit so quickly. But like, to see here that Poe already was one of the leaders, and we know that about him, and was already getting missions from Leia Organa, like, that's really interesting. And this, even though clearly this is not going to have any revelatory impact on what happened in the stories of the sequels, I just found it very compelling because that is a compelling world. And I feel like, if anything, the sequels kind of like shook that away too quickly to focus on their Skywalker nonsense, when actually the thing that was interesting was the tenuous standing of what was the Republic. So I really, really enjoyed it. Then is Star Wars High Republic Adventures, which we're almost at the end here. So this Star Wars High Republic Adventures series has spanned all the phases at Marvel. And actually, I think it's relaunched a couple times, but they never put phases into the titles of this one. This has been stronger all along. And this has, part of the reason it's so strong, I think Daniel Jose Older's writing has been spectacular throughout this book. It's made it really easy to love these characters, this huge cast of Jedi who are like just past the Padawan stage. And I think that this, I just love Harley Tullabal's artwork. It's so engaging, especially colored here by Michael Attia. It's so bold. It's so colorful. It's so emotive. I just lose myself every time. And he's not always the artist. He like alternates 2 issues on, 1 issue off. Every time he's the artist, it's my favorite comic book. Like, I just think he's so extraordinary, and he's so perfect for this world. Like, I sometimes in my head picture, would I like him on X-Men? Would I like him on Teen Titans? Maybe Teen Titans. But there's a certain youthful energy, and there's just, his faces are so expressive. The acting on this page, he's crying, and then he hears the voice of his friend over the radio, and his eyes get wide, and he shuts them again because he's like not sure he can like do the thing he needs to do. Such acting. So this to me is the High Republic book to read. Screw the Marvel High Republic book by Kevin Scott. It has never been good. This is where it's at, and I care about these characters so much. Meanwhile, we got a side one-shot for that, the Battle of Eriadu, which is happening throughout all of the end of Phase 3 years, but this is yet another one-shot, which is kind of a misnomer to call this one the Battle of Eriadu, because it's just resolving one particular plot thread of this single group of characters. It's not like I was expecting it to be kind of like a bird's eye 10,000 foot overview of the entire battle. It is not. So it was written by Alyssa Wong. It was fine. I don't think that Elisa Romboli, who's the artist, was quite up to the quality of even some of the other Star Wars Adventures books from Dark Horse. It just was a little gawky. It was a little inconsistent. The colors were fine from Dan Jackson. Tyler Smith's letters are always really strong. Also here with Jimmy Betancourt. But I remember reading the story of this particular cast, and I forget like what book it was in or whatever. So I guess it's nice to see it resolved, but honestly, I just don't like, I give every character their due, and it's nice to see stories get tied up at the end of things, but I didn't feel like this needed to be told. Like, no part of me was like, ooh, I can't wait to cut back to those characters. And then like the script was like whatever, and the art was whatever. So it kind of just felt like a wasted shot to me. Star Wars The High Republic Fear of the Jedi is the main end of Phase 3 of High Republic book at Marvel. This one's written by Kevin Scott, art by Marika Cresta, colors by Jim Campbell, letters by Ariana Mayer. This was probably my favorite issue of this because it did a really good space war. What would you call that? Like a space conflict, a space battle, like a galaxy conquest, a Milky Way, a Star War. It had a cool Star War. Sorry, that bit wasn't that funny. But, and it also, yeah, that's all I really have to say for it, honestly. I tried. It had some cool action in space. I mean, Cavan Scott's books have been pretty boring. Sorry, I'm sorry. He actually seems like a pretty decent writer. I think he's a better novelist than he is a comic book writer. Yet more Star Wars, because I'm not doing 60 seconds on this. This is The Rise of Skywalker, an adaptation of the movie by Queen of Adaptations, Jodie Hauser. Will Sliney's art is pretty good, but this just shows how completely incoherent the movie is. I guess I've never watched it still. It just makes no sense. And I know Jodie Hauser is doing her best to give it connective issue and giving it tissue and giving it internal monologue and doing anything she can to make sense of it. And it's just bad. There's no other way to cut it. If you're adapting a bad story, there's only so much you can do to turn it into a good story. I'm not reading Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin 2 Re-Evolution, although that cover is absolutely incredible. I did read Thunderbolts Doomstrike versus the original Thunderbolts. I don't know if I'm just tired or if I'm just tired of Lansing and Kelly, or I don't know, but I really hated this a lot. I hated it a lot because I didn't like the art. I forget if Tommaso Bianchi was the artist that was already drawing this the past couple of issues, but boy did his artwork not work for me here. It colored by Yen Nitro. I just think it was a broad miss. Like, this page was great. To exemplify that, they're in this fight in Wakanda, in a mine in Wakanda, and Atlas pounds the ground. Clearly he's broken through the ground, but Bucky here, his back is towards the ground. But then the ground gets broken through, and then we're watching him from above fall through, but then we're watching V jump in after him. It just, like, it should track. But something about the way we were rotating the camera to be at this eye level here, to be above him and then follow him down, I just, like, couldn't make sense of it. And that was a problem I had throughout a lot of this issue. I really like the original Thunderbolts, and I'm not a huge Thunderbolt fan, but I'm happy to see them back. And I think it was an interesting beat here to see that they're working for Doom, but some of them are doing it genuinely, and some of them are brainwashed, and some of them are LMDs. But I just think, I don't know how you could do a book with the Thunderbolts and Bucky in the release frame of the Thunderbolts movie and have it be this boring. It's just, you have to be pretty bad at making comic books to make it so boring. I don't read Thundercats. I did not read Tiffany and Charlotte on Another World, which is part of Gold Digger. I did read the final issue of Time Variance Authority, and this is a book that I had in my top 12 at one point. I just think Catherine Blair has such an easy way with writing these characters. Why is nobody else at Marvel this good as she is? And as I've mentioned repeatedly, I think this is Perry Perez's best art I've ever seen, as colored by Guru EFX, colors by Josepino. I mean, this cover is friggin' wild. What's really interesting about this is it is clear that Catherine Blair started this pitch with the idea that she was allowed to bring in MCU elements into comic books. And honestly, like, it's almost questionable if this is in 616 continuity, but I think it is, because of the way it uses Spider-Gwen and also the way it uses Jimmy Hudson, who we mentioned a little bit earlier. But then also, I mean, I don't always love Nightmare, but I enjoyed how Nightmare was used here, and I like that it also brought in the Dream Queen deep cut from Alpha Flight. And again, this artwork is just amazing. Like, the action is amazing, the color choices are amazing, the paneling is amazing. I've never seen Perry Perez go this hard, and I've always enjoyed him, but the level up of him here is just unreal. I ultimately like this series because I think Catherine Blair used our understanding of the MCU as a shorthand to be able to play some beats that clearly did reference the MCU in a way that we would immediately understand without having to tell us the whole backstory. And it doesn't matter if it's in continuity. I know people who are MCU people are like, I thought we were going to get a comic book that was actually a movie continuity. Clearly not. But I like that it used that shorthand so that if you do follow some amount of the MCU, it made sense to you. And there was more drama than a comic book that tried to invent that all from whole cloth. But mostly I was here for the art. It resolved fine. It was a little bit of like a ping-pongy, rubber bandy fight, if I'm being honest. But the reveal of Dream Queen, which, like, spoilers, but it's a month-old comic book and you probably weren't reading it anyway. The reveal of Dream Queen really, really did for me. I thought that was such a fun thing to bring in. Oh, great. Another miniseries that'll end with a cliffhanger. Also, why was Scarlet Witch in this? She didn't add much to the plot. Okay. I don't know why I always say as my transition. We got to kick that habit. Ultimate Spider-Man. This issue was gorgeous, which is the one nice thing I can say about it. Maybe I was just getting tired by this point, but also, here's the thing. You've got Marco Cucchetto. You are Jonathan Hickman. I feel like what's happening in this book is we're getting this competition between Hickman, who just could be writing cool dad Spider-Man, and Hickman, who's building his world. And he's good at both of those things. But me, personally, pour moi, I want Dad Spider-Man. That's what I signed up for, Hickman. And I just feel like he's doing everything he can to avoid writing Spider-Man being Spider-Man because he's got so many balls in the air and he's got to move so much of this plot forward. This to me just felt like it could have been a one-shot from another book or like a 0.1 issue. It was interesting. The art was gorgeous. The reveal of what's going on here was like earth-shattering. You all did kind of tease that something big was coming here and you were not joking. So I liked it, but I also am like, why can't I have a Spider-Man comic book? It's interesting to take a character as grounded as Spider-Man, who like we want to spend so much personal time with, and then to make his comic about such big plot beat things. It's like such an interesting dichotomy that almost like grinds against each other a little bit. So it's really interesting. I'm not saying I didn't hate it. It was actually a really good comic book. I love how it gave us more context, and the reveal of which I really don't think I spoiled with this page. The reveal is crazy. Like if you're trade waiting this and you're going to read it, there's no way you could have anticipated this. It will totally shock you. It is a gut punch. Don't let anybody spoil you. It is incredible. I just want more Spider-Man somehow. Want more Spider-Man. Jamie 4C says, or C47 says, love this issue. It got me back on track, being interested after finding it dull for a few issues. Yeah, I would agree. The intrigue level off the charts. I didn't read Victor Crowley's Hatchet Midnight Murders. I did read Void Rivals, which is an end of arc, so you always know that Kirkman is going to get up to some nonsense at the end of the arc. The problem, I'm having two big problems with this book. Robert Kirkman, I'm never going to like his writing. The ship has sailed. The train has left the station. I'm just never... He always writing for trade, always writing to get you to get the next issue that just nothing ever feels fulfilling. It's like empty calories. It's like a Weight Watchers shake. I just never feel like I'm getting sustenance from it. That said, my main problem here is I just don't think Lorenzo De Felici is up to this task. I don't. And I don't say that in a mean way. I've liked comics by him before, whether it's the schedule, whether it's the range of stuff he has to draw. I just don't think that there's enough in the art here for me to respond to. Like whether that's enough character acting, whether that's enough emotions, but the plot of this was interesting. We've gotten this very star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet, but it's Space Cadets thing of these two people from the opposite sides of the ring, and like, why are their societies constantly at war? Why won't they communicate with each other? We learned that they actually are secretly communicating with each other, and now we know what the reason they've been separate all along. And now our two characters have lots of information, lots of agents they had for 18 issues. So from that perspective, I actually do think Kirkman did deliver, although it felt very short and bite-sized to me. But plot-wise, this is probably as interested as I've been in the plot in this whole series. And as our lore has it, I have dropped this 3 or 4 times along the way because I just get frustrated with it so often. This is probably the most into the plot I've been, but it's hard to get fully excited. I saw this cover, Warcorns, Combat Unicorns for Hire, Fistful of Rainbows. And then I'm like, oh, so is it like a Wildcat thing? I love it. This is cool. And then I look down and it's like these 2 naked ladies and this like butt shots. I'm like, what is this book? It's called Warcorns, which makes me think it's going to be like funny, whimsical. It's going to be like Thundercatsy. But then also it's a TNA book. I don't know. I'm deeply, deeply interested. Who is the Warcorn? Where does the Warcorn come into this equation? I don't know. I have so many questions. I did read Weapon X-Men by Joe Casey. Joe Casey is such a weird fit for this, truly. So this wraps up this main arc that he started with Baron Strucker, I think. And so it seems like he thought he was going to get an ongoing series out of this. At the end, there's even this fun beat of like, don't call us X-Force. I'm thinking of them as Weapon X-Men, right? And then I think there's only 1 or 2 more issues. So clearly that plane never took off from the runway. Chris Cross on art here has some kind of like awkward moments, and I think it's partially how Yen Nitro is coloring him. I've seen Yen Nitro's name a couple times this week. Welcome to the fold. You're not my favorite colorist. It's I don't really like the shiny, and I just think some of the faces got a little like weird and square for me, although there was like a certain Steve Dillon quality to some of them too, which I like. I mean, Chris Cross is a classic artist. It's not my favorite issue of Chris Cross art. It just felt like this was a very monologue heavy book. Like the first issue was so fun and action packed, and then the second issue was legit a full issue monologue, and then this felt like a half issue monologue, and then it felt like very Deus Ex Machina of like, oh, and then we poured the adamantium vat on these adamantium robots. The end. Like I didn't really I was like, where was the conflict? It just felt like we had action set up, and then we got monologue to, and then it just ended the way it was always going to end. I don't know. Like, it didn't really feel like there was a lot of drama or question or anything there. Okay, finally, we made it to the W's, and I get to talk about this comic book. It might have not been my like perfect comic of the week. We're taking everyone down with us, issue number 2. I certainly had other things. I did rank 5, and this was a little bit off from that, just for like a little bit of pacing issues, but it was double length, which I love. But in terms of comics that I want to plunk down my credit card and read the next 50 issues of right the fuck now, this might be at the top of the list. Matthew Rosenberg, we're back, baby. Art by Stefano Landini, obsessed. Colors by Jason Wordie, letters by Hassan Otsmane Alhal, designed by Becca Carey. I gotta sell you on this book. I think I sold you on it last month, but so first of all, this page layout, I mean, wow, way to do a 15 panel page that just works so well. But the whole plot of this book is that we've got this kind of super bad guy, kind of like the bad guy in Inspector Gadget, but he's just living on his island. He's kind of mostly done being a bad guy. He's just doing his mad science, minding his own business. And finally, his personal James Bond comes to assassinate him. And so what does that mean for his 12-year-old daughter, who he's just raising to be like, we're just scientists and trying to make the world better, and those awful, you know, governments and capitalists are trying to make the world worse, right? Kind of, I'm like, ooh, am I the supervillain? Is this how I'm raising Kid Crisis? But it's so funny. The action is so kinetic. It's got so many like witty little beats in it. The bursts of violence are so satisfying. Like, it's not that I dislike violence. I like violence in books, but it's gotta come at the right interval, the right pace to like make you satisfied when it gets bloody. And I think it's so smart. There's so many questions. Like, who is this James Bond? It seems like his organization, Vale, like doesn't even really like him that much. So he's kind of like gone rogue, or he's like gone, what's it called when something gone to seed? Like he's like almost like over the hill, but he's still dangerous, so he's like a loose cannon. But then when Vale realizes that he's taken down one of these big supervillains, then they're like, okay, maybe we're on board now. Meanwhile, he's got his whole septet of supervillains who are like talking to each other like, should we go and save him? Except there's supposed to be 7 of them. Here's 5, he's the 6th, so who's the 7th? It's just, there's so many cool questions. It's so much cool world building. It's cool because it's an indie book, not based on IP, and I want to spend more time with every single character. Every character we've passed by, I'm like, ooh, can I get like another minute with them? And the art is so good. This paneling is so great. It's inventive. It's interesting. It carries my vision across the page, but it's not like your standard paneling. You know, it's using the angles, and you've heard me really, really object to people who just throw in these angled panels all the time, constantly for no reason. But I think Stefano Landini is doing it in a way that really is motivated and tells the story. I just love it. I love, again, burst of violence, like really kind of like funny scene. It's a little bit tense. The girl kind of is giving funny body language, which is Landini is drawing really well, and then burst of violence at the end. Like that, great way to use that without just making every single page along the way bloody. This comic is outstanding. I could not recommend it any more highly. James Abel says, we're taking everyone down with us. This issue gave me some classic James Bond and Thunderbird vibe. Annalise is great in it. She's becoming a great character. Completely agree. Power Pals, who are they? Who are the Power Pals? I thought I was gonna love this book. I loved issue number 1. Issue number 2, instant drop. It's by Dwayne Murray, art and cover by Ahmed Rafat, lettered by Rob Jones. The thing is, it's not a bad book. You might enjoy it. We have love this page, love the density of panels on this page. It's playing this beat of them they're both former actors. They used to be on like a TV hero show like My Greatest Hero. Now they're just out of work losers who can't get a job, and they're trying to but their one video of them being superheroes in the first issue went viral. So they're like, oh, maybe we could be real life superheroes. But this is such a funny passage. And if the whole book was like this, I would like it, where they hear this ad on the radio and they're like, didn't you read for that ad? No, I thought you did. And then they're trying to do the ad read right in the car, but they're both telling each other like, no, do it this way. So funny, and like gets to the heart of who these morons are. The problem is, and I didn't actually take these pages because they were wide pages, this whole issue sets up them trying to figure out how to be heroes again. And then we get a montage of like the things they do to try to go viral, and it's drawn and presented as a comic book strip. So it's wordless, and it's all these full page spreads that just like condense their trying to go viral as quick as possible, which on one hand, I get it. Like you want to zoom us through, you want to montage us through that. So we see that they've tried a lot of things that's not working. Mishaps in those situations were what was funny about issue number 1. Then when we actually spend real time with them in this issue, it's just them like fighting and being bumbling in fights. And I'm like, actually, the funnier thing was to follow them into these social situations where they misread saving somebody out for a walk at night, which does get presented in full here. And it is very, very funny. But those were the things that were funny about it. And those were the things I enjoyed about the first issue and the beginning of this issue. So then to montage through so many of them to get to the end, like, I get it. I do appreciate that it's moving the plot along. And there's this plot that, like, clearly the person who's the owner of the studio is nefarious and he's, like, going to do some kind of, like, big terrorist act, and they've almost uncovered it, but they're too stupid to realize. But I just don't have the patience. I don't have the patience for montaging past the thing that I thought was funny. Okay, so now we come to Wolverine and Kitty Pryde. I actually totally missed that this was out in this week, and I was putting the covers in, and I already had this cover because I had already covered it on my Marvel post, and I got here, it's like, oh my gosh, there was a Wolverine and Kitty Pryde Chris Claremont book to read. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll read it. It's like 1 a.m. last night. I'm like, I want to go to sleep. Please, God, let me be done, prep for this show so I can just talk to all my people. So I sat and read it, and it was pretty great. I think the thing is that Claremont, of all of the characters he can go back and fall back into writing, Wolverine and Kitty are the two. Like, he's okay at Nightcrawler, but there's no other characters he just snaps into the way he snaps into Wolverine and Kitty. And this book, by the way, explicitly sets itself in continuity. It says this happens between the events of Kitty Pryde and Wolverine #6 and Uncanny X-Men 192. I think Claremont works the best when he's got characters that he loves and when he knows exactly what he's doing and where he is, and he's not just kind of in this amorphous free space in his run. And this, it was good. It was good. If you liked classic Claremont, you're going to like it. I don't know that Damian Cochero with color from Carlos Lopez was the perfect choice for art here. This is coming, I forget who drew that Wolverine and Kitty Pryde series. We're coming right off of the Paul Smith run on X-Men. We're in a period of John Romita Jr. I just have to look up who drew that original series. I'm not saying that they needed somebody to ape that, but this just feels like a little deconstructed indie comics. Yeah, I mean, I guess the original was from Al Milgrom, and I can see how this is adjacent to Al Milgrom. I didn't hate it. The art wasn't bad. I just wished the art was a little bit more consistent to the kind of comic art that we would see in the 80s, so it'd feel more of a piece with it. But what's really interesting about this is it kind of just acts as an epilogue to that Kitty Pryde and Wolverine series. By the final page, we get to what this news story is going to be. But honestly, even if you just want to read it as a one-shot because you have affection for that series, it actually really, really works. Jamie C47 says, Wolverine and Kitty Pryde #1, really like this. Felt like Claremont picked up where he left off and was a natural sequel to the original. I could not agree more. You said it better than me on far, far less than 60 seconds. Yeah, like, and just Claremont putting in more meat, more texture to Kitty's relationship with her father, which ultimately there's not that much of in the original Claremont run, but clearly he always had it. It really worked. I just think the script really, really worked. You'll Do Bad Things is a drop for me. This is issue #2 of the Serial Killer series from Tyler Boss with art from Adriano Tertolucci and has letters from Hassan Otsman Elhal. Again, this to me was the same problem as the Slasher's Apprentice. We have this writer who wrote a true crime book, and now he wants to write a romance, but he keeps trying to write romance and writing true crime instead, and the crimes are actually coming true and happening in the real world. All very interesting. There's just nothing to hang on to here. Like, I don't think he's very fully formed. And like, there's something to this whole, he's a loser, he hasn't written a book in 10 years. Like, there is something attractive to that. But then to have, he intersects with his serial killer that he's dreamt up, or is he being psychic? And the serial killer chases him. And it just kind of made me say, like, I'm not engaged in this book at all. Like, okay, he's dreaming up serial killing, or maybe he just has a psychic connection to this killer. Like, what's the hook? Why are we here? What's the plot? What are we curious about? What's the mystery? What's the tension? Like, it seems like that's all very self-evident. Like, he's a failed writer, he's having visions or causing some kind of serial killing. It doesn't really seem like there's a big mystery about him causing it or not. And then also we cut to this whole B sequence with these two police officers who are going back to investigate the crime, the cold case that he originally wrote his true crime book about. And it just wasn't interesting. So I'm going to drop it. There's only, even a good image book by a good team and a good writer like Tyler Boss, there are only so many minutes in my day, and I gotta, reclaiming my time. Finally, we come to Z, which was a Zenoscope one-shot that honestly, was an outstanding sampler of 3 really good Zenescope characters, which was funny to me because I think they're ending their whole universe right now. They keep, you're a month ahead of me if any of you actually read current Zenescope. It seems like they're tipping into like a big incursion type event where they're going to reset everything. So it seems like a weird time to do a one-shot that's like, here's how to like our best 3 characters. And it had really cool, complete bibliographies of all their trade paperbacks inside that made me go like, oh, maybe I do want a Zenescope guide. Because actually, even with the bibliography, it was confusing. Anyway, that's 30 seconds, not even about the book. So the first story here was Robin Hood, which is kind of their Lady Hawkeye, kind of modern day Robin Hood here. And so this is called The Gargoyle's Curse. It also had another character I really, really like in Zenescope, The Black Knight. This was okay. It had pretty solid art from Gabriel Jardim. I really liked the colors from Robbie Bivard. It was a little bit like plainer than their typical artwork. It was a fine story, fine one-shot story, nothing to write home about. Van Helsing in the second story with artwork by Saint Yak and colors by Grostieta. I think Van Helsing is always the best character at Zenescope. She's just the one that they seem to put the most effort into developing. Also, this art was unusually good. Zenescope does have good art sometimes, but if I showed you this page and I told you this was by Pepe Larraz, colored by Marte Gracia, you would believe me, especially because this guy has little reflections on his head there for no reason. But seriously, the art in the story was incredible, and I if you want to dip your toe into Zenescope, I highly, highly rate any Van Helsing story. You want to Liesel Van Helsing. She's like the daughter of the original Van Helsing. Her books are always the best Zenescope books by far. However, I didn't really understand this third story being here. It's about Killer Cobra, and it's art by Massimiliano Lamano and colors by Max Flanaraggio. All of this is written by Joe Bruscia. All of it is lettered by Taylor Esposito. I didn't understand because it was like a fine, not that funny Killer Cobra story at the time that they have a Killer Cobra miniseries coming out that's really, really good. So like, I could understand if this was Marvel and we were like, ooh, it's like an A story with Wolverine and a B story with Moon Knight and then a C story with this new character, Killer Cobra. Maybe that will like attract people to buy the current series. But to have basically all Zenescope characters are B-list and C-list characters, just to have 3 C-list characters in a book, and then if the third story be a character that there currently is a limited series of, I just didn't understand what they were trying to accomplish there. Okay. That's it. We got So Glad We Made It. Look how far we've come now, baby. We made it to the end in 3 minutes, under 3 hours. That's incredible. So this has been me trying to catch up on all my reading. And that means I have to do, if this is April 30th, I have to do May 7th, May 14th, May 21st, May 28th. And was that last week? I sure hope so. No, because today's the 9th, 10th, 11th, and June 4th. Oh no, I'm 5 weeks behind. So I have a lot of reading to do. But meanwhile, there's some other things going on now. I do think I'm going to try to squeeze in another stream to talk about the DC poll, because I want to talk about while it's still happening. Please go vote if you haven't voted already. That closes on Wednesday, U.S. Eastern time at 8 o'clock. So there's not that much time left. It does not have as many voting days as the Marvel poll. So I'm probably going to be back to talk about that. We're supposed to have a jamming on comics this week on Tuesday on Omnidog's Vault, but Freddie is doing some cool work projects, so he cannot come. So I don't know if it's going to be just me and Omnidog, or if we're going to postpone it. Maybe Max is available. Max is in the United States right now in Austin, Texas, a place that I love. I don't know if he's going to be back in the Netherlands by then, so I don't know if we're going to have an Omnidog's Vault or not. And then I have to somehow read another 60 comics that came out the next week so I can start to catch up. So I think I kind of kept up with your comments the whole time, which I proves that I'm actually getting better at this. We did it. Hooray. If you haven't voted on the near mint condition DC Omnibus poll, please go and do so. It's the Tiger Eyes most wanted DC Omnibus poll. The link is in the description if you haven't voted yet. And I have to get back to doing pull list posts on Crushing Crisis. If there's no pull list post, then I don't know what my picks of the week are and I can't do the show. So I'm probably going to spend the next 2 days doing pull list posts. Then the poll will close. Then I'm going to try to get a week ahead on reading to maybe stream again later this week and not wait all the way until next Sunday, because the poll results announcement is like next Monday or Tuesday, and I've got to do all the slides for that. So a lot of things happening here, plus work, plus life, plus cooking. We cook so much gourmet food here. Like a typical dinner 6 nights a week is like a 90-minute to 2-hour recipe, and they're all from scratch and they're all pretty gourmet. And so I often mention the recipes and people are like, you cook that? Because people don't know me as a cook. Like I wasn't really known for being a good cook when I was in the States. And so I've been cooking And so I've actually been sharing my recipes with people, but it's not like my recipes, like they're from 1,000 different great food blogs, but just to my personal circle of friends, my home friends from the US, I've been sharing my recipes, and it's been really fun because like they don't read comic books, so they don't get to experience me this way, and you do. And it makes me realize you all have seen more of me than everybody else in my life other than my D&D people, because they see a lot of me. So it's been fun to like find a thing that people might be interested about to talk to the people in my life about, and that has been food. It takes up a lot of my day, almost more time than comics at this point. So that's just one more thing that it takes up my time to do. So I don't think we're going to do a song today because I did not warm up and I have so much catching up to do. So I think we're just going to focus on the catching up. You've been so wonderful to be here. I've loved your comics this whole time. Comments, drink. Jamie C47 says, still working on my order for the votes. I've got it down to 11 books. So you got to decide which one to cut. Kane has been crocheting for the first time. It's going as well as expected for a beginner, but that's fine. Got to start somewhere. Exactly, right? It's part of the whole resolve, repair, recover cycle. I forget what order it goes in now, but we all know that it's my saying. Like, you got to start the thing somewhere. And I do feel like that in my life somewhere where, like, I have a guide I want to do so bad right now, and I want to do it, but it's like, you got to start somewhere. And the start is, like, catch up on the YouTube stuff. Like, this is defined. I know I have to do it. You got to start somewhere. So if you want to crochet, you got to start by crocheting. It's, you've always just got to begin. You want to play guitar, you want to go for a run, you want to do couch to 5K, you've just always got to start somewhere. And my mantra for myself this year is, like, stop losing sense of where to start. If things get too busy, if things get too hectic, if life gets too crazy or painful or hard, it's so easy to, especially in the world, especially with what's happening right now, it's so easy to just be like, there's no place I could possibly start. I'm just going to lay here. Which in this house we call snow patrolling, because Snow Patrol has that song, if I lay here, if I just lay here. And so in our house, if you're just laying around staring at the ceiling, we call that snow patrolling. It's so easy to just snow patrol in a world that's hard. I mean, the economy is hard, jobs are hard, inflation is hard, civil rights are hard, everything is hard. And it's so easy to just corpse and snow patrol and stare at the ceiling. But I think Kane has the right idea there, which is you've just got to find the start. And sometimes the start is folding one piece of clothing. Sometimes the start is just going for a walk. Sometimes the start is, I've had those crochet needles in my house forever. Sometimes the start is read the effing comic books and get back on your stream to talk to all of your friends, Krisis. And so I just encourage you to start at the start. JJ, Tiffany, no, you didn't miss my list. I will, if I get another stream in one of the next 3 days, I will talk about my list. It won't be 60 like for Marvel, but I also have some other ideas. Logan Wayne, love to have me back, and I love being back. Kane loves cooking. Lance needs to cook more. JJ busy. Always JJ Tiffany. Busy, busy bee. Yeah. Some people fall into the busyness trap where they're like too busy to do anything meaningful. They're like, oh, I'm too busy to cook well. I'm too busy to exercise. I don't try to be that busy. I like to be busy where I am doing the things that I love all the time. We have limited time on this earth. We have limited time with the people that we love. We have limited money unless we're a billionaire. Like, squeeze enjoyment out of every minute that you can until you need some time to rest. And I really try to do that. And I try to make stuff and do stuff all the time. Edwin Billiard's usually cooking during my live stream. You know why? I mostly cook vegetarian. I make a chili mac and cheese that I really, really enjoy. I'm a big pressure cooker and crock pot person. Like, I just hate washing dishes. And once I discovered that crock pot, you could just do everything in the crock pot, close the lid, speed up the cooking, not have any splatter. I just became a crocker pot, instant pot, pressure cooker, whatever you want to call it. I became a truther. So I do a lot of my recipes all week in the crock pot. And I think it's great for chilies because it makes the flavor happen really quickly. Actually, Sunday night, which for me was last night, is the only night a week that I do habitually eat meat. We usually eat chicken on a Sunday, and I made these chicken little mini meatloafs. It's so easy. Like, I could send you the link to the recipe. I think if you just search chicken mini meatloafs, Mexican chicken mini meatloafs, you'll find it. But honestly, all it is you saute a bunch of onions and bell peppers, and what's the other thing that I did first? And you make some quinoa, and you just put it in a big bowl, and then you toss in anything that would excite you to make like a Mexican dish. So you put in all this chicken mince, you crack an egg. I put in cumin, oregano, but you could put in cheese, you could put in salsa, you could put in tamales, you could put in jalapenos, whatever you want. And then you just make them you just make little meatballs of them, or you put them in like a muffin tin and you just cook them. And you just get these perfect Mexican. I mean, just because I say cook gourmet all the time, it doesn't mean everything is like highbrow. I'm not doing special, foam of things. Sometimes the things are pretty lowbrow. And it's one of my favorite lowbrow dishes. I make a lot of other chicken dishes that are much fancier. I just did a Moroccan chicken last week with chopped up dates. I really like making baharat chicken, which is I think a Middle Eastern or Israeli spice combination. You got to do a whole, make the baharat bloom beforehand. But sometimes the most delicious thing is like a dump and bake thing. And I think that that's fine. And I hate washing dishes. Okay. Planet 628 cooked my first steak on a stainless steel pan. It was success. I like cooking on stainless steel. I don't like cast iron. I know some people, there's a magic to it that like you let the thing sit for long enough and then it releases, or you get a patina of that's the grime in the pan makes it not stick. I'm not good at that. I think because I'm such an OCD dishwasher person. I like to wash things until they are like as squeaky clean as the day you bought them. So to me and cast iron are not friends. Logan Wayne, might my stream happen before the poll ends? Yes, but I'm not going to go over every option that's on the poll because Dom of X crushed it on the poll announcement. If you didn't watch us do the poll announcement, which was last Monday on Near Mint Condition, I have no reason to go over it again myself because Dom knows DC's publishing history so well that every time I was at a loss for words, Dom came in and was amazing. I was in awe of him. So if you haven't already, go and watch. I think it was really fun. It was really good work. There were so many funny gags. There was so much cool Dom versus Omar stuff. So I'm not going to go through every option on this channel because I just think there's no way to do it better than Dom did it on the actual stream. Okay. Oh my gosh, you're all still talking. So we're still here. Start somewhere and remember why you do it, because you enjoy it. Hopefully. Yeah. Couldn't have said it. You all are better at summarize. I'll just talk for hours and then you all say it in a line and it's great. Do I think I'm busy? I have 200 plus issues of Zenoscope comics to read. Good thing there's those panty shots to go. Super job. You've turned not from just a regular to being like one of the most regular voices. Like I just expect to hear your commentary on certain things, and you've really, really kept me laughing today. Lance McNair talking about the business trap. I've got to start using this term. Yeah, there are people in my life, especially back in the States, who they would be like, I'm just too busy to do blah, and not in a realistic time management. Somebody very, very kindly reached out, maybe a viewer, I don't know if they watched the show, but reached out to ask me if I wanted to do a podcast on a topic I really, really love. And I had to say to them, like, I would love to do that. I literally would have to be delinquent on something else that I'm responsible for in order to do that. To me, that's not the busyness trap. That's being a realistic project and time manager, to be like, I would love to join a rugby team, but if I do that, I would not be able to cook for my family. I would not be able to have a job. I would not be able to pick up my kid from school. That to me is not the busyness trap. The busyness trap is people are like, oh, I'm so busy. I can't possibly read a book. I'm too busy to read a book. Well, no, you probably have time to read a book. What's making you so busy? Scrolling on social media, like you watching TV at night, like, grocery shopping 2 times a week when you could grocery shop 1 time a week. That's the busyness trap, where you don't actually critically look at how much time things take and how much time overlaps between things. And you just I couldn't possibly. And people are like that in work a lot of times. That's this particular kind of difficult person you've got to deal with in an office format. And I don't enjoy working with that personality, but that's why I'm a project manager, so I can help them. Because there's this person who's like, there's so many things, I can't possibly take on another deadline. It's like, okay, well, there must be a way to get there. How can we arrange the stuff in the order that will help you get there? What are the smaller deadlines? How can we break it down? How can we delegate it? So I just think I want to make clear there's a difference between actually being that busy in life, which many of us are hustling that hard, and the busyness trap, where you just think you're so busy that you cannot possibly do anything new or different. JJ Tiffany saying that's a good way to look at it. Limited time in life, so do as many things as you can that you love. Sad when you could say a person has 60 to 90 summers in their life. Yeah, I think about that in seasons. I'm not a big summer fan, so I don't mind wasting a summer, but I think about that every spring because I love spring. I love the gradual warmness. I love the cool breezy days. I like being a little chilly in a t-shirt. And every spring I think, like, are you doing enough to appreciate this spring? Because you get a finite number of them. And that's how I think about being a parent too. Like, but I think I'm not trying to send this message. I'm not one of these parents are special. We have so much special in our lives because we're parent. No, there's plenty of fulfilling things in life. You don't have to be a parent to experience fulfillment. But the message I bring to you from being a parent is you feel that very acutely when you have a kid, because you're seeing them grow and change every day. And that phase that you love, that felt like it was going to be forever, especially when they're little and time feels slow at first, you look back and you're like, I can never snuggle that baby again. The baby is now a toddler. The toddler is now a kindergarten student. They're now in grade school. They're now a teenager. And so I think if you're a parent, I think you really learn that lesson of like the ephemeral nature of these things that happen one time. And I am always saying to myself, as busy as I am and all the things I want to do, this is the only day of Kid Krisis's life. This is the only version of this day of Kid Crisis' life that I get. Tomorrow will be another day. And if I didn't joke with her today or ask her how school was today or sit down with her today to talk about Wonder Woman or something, I can't do that again. So I've tried to get better, especially this year, as I've really tried to just be more of a more whole, holistic, grounded, plugged in person, to like interrupt myself in the middle of like, I gotta be heads down in this comic thing, this ADHD super focus I get, where I'm like, I've got to read the comics, I got to do the covers, I got to make the guide, to just get up and walk to Kid Crisis' room and be like, what are you up to? What are you doing? We've been doing all these cool science experiments lately for a thing at her school. That's been really fun. It's just like, you know, I always try to find. So I think there's nothing special about me being a parent. And there's nothing special about the fact that I'm doing that with my kid. But I'm saying, find that in your life. Because Tiffany's got it. This idea that you only have 60 to 90 summers. That's the place that I'm operating from in 2025. Not a place of busyness, not a place of FOMO, but a place of acknowledged scarcity, I think, is what I would say. Okay. Bunkmaster, it's been almost 4 hours. No, it's not. It's just every 3 hours. Don't gaslight me. Gaslighter. Bunkmaster B, go home and be with Kid Crisis. I'm in my home. She's at school right now. One Wheelchair X says, thank you for the stream, and I needed to hear that about just starting. I also end up procrastinating by focusing on everything that needs doing when you need to take it one step at a time. And, you know, I know, because I've known One Wheelchair X from before he was 18, I think. So I know approximately how old he is. And in your 20s, it's like this weird combination of like ultimate possibility, but also like you're looking at all these people that are accomplished at all these things, whether they're on YouTube, they're musicians, they have cool jobs or whatever. And you're like, when am I ever going to get there? And that itself, I think, sometimes like suppresses the just get started urge, because you see all these people that are doing all these cool things and you're like, oh, but like you have so much time to do all those cool things. And I think one of the things I did successfully in my 20s is I just was like a vicious dog who like sunk my teeth into, like, if I saw people were good at singing, I was like, well, then I'm going to take voice lessons. If I saw people who were like managers at work, I'm like, what trainings can I go to that you like to send managers on? Like, I was vicious in attacking everything about life that I could attack. Like, I'm jealous of people who have houses. How much money can I save? What corners could I cut? And I think, like, you know, it's fun to have fun in your 20s too. You should have fun in your 20s, but I think the 20s are also for viciously attacking life. So yeah. Okay. Talking more about the busyness trap. To be fair, some people don't have the focus energy when something else is always sucking at them. Yeah. And I don't mean to say any of these things during Paul's as like I come from a place of privilege and I come from a place of challenge, right? Like, I have a life that I've built that lets me do these focus and to start things, right? Like, I have the privilege of going out for a jog later today. Some people can't. But at the same time, like, I deal with challenges to that too. I definitely could be on some drugs that would help my brain for sure, but that I am not currently on. So, you know, everybody's got that mix of challenges. I was on Reddit talking about all my recipes that I make, because in New Zealand, so many people eat meat in New Zealand and they think that it's the whole thing. I'm not going to get into it, but people are like, I'm out of recipes, or like, there's no good recipes to make under $15. And then I'll post like 25 recipes that we make that is like under $15 for 4 to 6 servings, because a lot of them are vegetarian and like all you need is like 2 cans of chickpeas and a can of tomatoes, or like an onion and 2 bell peppers and some rice and spices. And the responses are often like, that sounds really expensive. I'm like, well, you do have to buy spices over time. Like, spoilers, you have to find the time to buy spices, because you don't just have meat to be meat. But even with meat, you need spices to make it taste good. So yeah, you've got to put in the time to buy the spices, but it's not like I'm literally, this recipe is rice and a tomato, you know, like it's not some specialty thing. But then a lot of people are like, how can you do that? I have so much time, like I have to commute to work back and forth and then pick up my kids and then get them to their karate and this and that. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, you're time poor and you need somebody to like come into your life and help you with the time poorness to figure out like where these just start at moments can be. And a lot of what I've always said in my life is like, you gotta collapse the margins. It's like when you've got something you want to fit into one piece of paper in Word or whatever, you know, document thing you use, and you're like, oh, I'm going to spread out the margins really far. My approach to finding the time to do that thing in life, no matter how privileged or not I am in any situation, no matter if have the upper hand or I've got a handicap in that situation, is always like press the margins. What can I spend less money on? What can I spend less time on? What could happen at the same time as another thing? If I took the bus instead of driving, could I do my reading while I'm on the bus? Like, I'm always trying to like crush things to the sides, but that's just why I like being a project manager. I like crashing the schedule. But yeah, that's all to say, like, I get that it's harder for some people. Some people do not have the time to read 10 comics a week. Some people do not have the time to cook meals every day. But you know what? I give up tons of stuff that I don't have time to do because I do those things. And I just think as long as we're all doing the things that we wanted to get started on and are enjoying, then that's great. Wow, you're getting so much therapy talk from me after me not being here for a month. Lance, man, I never got diagnosed with ADHD, but I definitely have that super focus issue sometimes. Oh boy. Mall 360, yeah, me too. Awesome stream as always. Thank you. Planet 618, did I say I read the Robotech novels? Yes, every damn one. I've got, now you guys are motivating me. I might need to find a way to get them all in New Zealand. Maybe they've republished them, or there's like a set in the UK or something that I can get. But I did earlier this year. I got almost every single thing that oh, now the name jumped out of my head. But I got almost every single thing by this one author I really like, whose name is now not going to appear to me. Hold on, I talk about her all the time. Say the word, Ursula Le Guin. I got just about every Ursula Le Guin in this beautiful set of hardcovers. Have I read them all yet? No. Do I need to get out of my busyness trap and start them? Yes. But I haven't found the time yet. So I would love to also get all of Robotech. I'm not saying being an involved parent isn't special. I just have always I've always taken umbrage with people who are like, you don't know because you're not a parent. Like, there are plenty of things in life that are incredibly fulfilling that you can start and grow. It's amazing to be a parent to a pet. It's amazing to grow a business. I don't think it's amazing to be an uncle or an aunt or a family friend to young kids in your life. I just think it's amazing to mentor professional people. I just don't think there's anything. I hate that people try to be like, well, you're not a parent yet, so you don't know. I do not buy into that. I think that's bullshit. But there is something special about being a great parent. I agree. And I aspire to that every day. And some days I get there and some days I don't. And the thing I really believe in as part of my parenting philosophy, by the way, is you have to apologize to kids. You cannot always be right. And you have to tell them when you did something wrong, whether you raised your voice a little bit and you didn't mean to, whether you meant to bring their favorite snack, but you're in a hurry, so you brought a snack they needed less. Kids need to understand that you're not always right and that the world does owe them being treated well. If you try to treat it like you never have to apologize just because you're a parent, that's like a manager who never says they're wrong, right? None of us want that manager. Nobody's perfect. And I just think that's so core to my parent philosophy, is like, you got to know when to apologize when you screwed up. Okay. Next, imagine not saying yes. Sometimes one has to forcibly remind oneself that literally every day is a gift, even if only intellectually for a moment. Meditation helps enormously. I can't meditate. Talking about, it's just like I can't find illustrated characters sexy. I can't meditate because my brain goes too fast that I have to be doing something in addition to the meditating. So I that's why I love yoga, because getting into the yoga pose, if it's difficult enough, I will meditate. It's why I like running, because I hate running, actually. It's my least favorite thing in the world. But I hate the running so much while I'm running that I go into this beautiful mental state where I like really reflect on what's going on in my life, and I need that, and I can't get there without the running. When I was little, we used to have these tapes that were like guided meditation, the kind where it's like, imagine light going down your body, or like imagine you're being coated in chocolate or whatever. And I do like that kind of guided meditation because it forces you to like focus on every part of your body as you go. And I think that there's something that gets you into a trance-like state about that. My brain still works a little too fast to do that, but I like what I learned from that, which is to do body check-ins, which I do a lot when I'm not feeling well, or I'm not eating the right things, or I'm not hydrated enough, as I do that kind of body inventory where I go from the tip of my head down to my toes, and I'm like, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? So I do think everybody should try meditation and find the thing that works for them. I physically cannot meditate unless I'm doing something physical as well. So I do yoga, I get meditation from that. I do running, I get meditation from that. It's part of swimming. I really want to go back to the pool this week. Freddie is trying to bully me until I go to the pool. Okay, and we made it to the bottom. Anyway, what a fantastic stream. I'm about to eat dinner. Good night, everybody. And that is it from me. I've been Krisis. There are places to continue to watch me. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps if you hit like. But honestly, I'm very interested in making sure that you all show up every time, more than I'm interested in randomly reaching new people. So I want to make sure that if you want the notifications, turn on the notification bell. I will hopefully be back at least the next couple of Sundays to do this as regular time, but there are going to be some bonus streams popping up. So if you want to see those as they happen instead of on replay, hit the notification bell. You can find my website at crushingkrisis.com. There's so much content about so many comics. Part of the thing I've been wondering, we'll talk about this next time I'm on, is I had so much fun doing the poll post. I cannot do that heaviness of post every day, but I could be doing something like that once or twice a week. And I'm very curious to know what is fun for you to read about comics in between seeing me on the show, or if you care at all. Like, have you been on Crushing Crisis reading the mapping stuff? But we'll put a pin on that and talk about that next time. So please check out Crushing Crisis. If you need help answering a question about a comic book and it's by Marvel, it's almost certainly answered. And if it's by DC, it's probably like 50% possibly answered. And of course, it's really helpful to have Patreon support. Even though I'm not posting on Patreon, so much stuff on Crushing Crisis is still unique to Patrons, and that pays for all of this that's happening. So I really appreciate it. So until next time, which could be as soon as tomorrow, treat yourself well, give yourself time to repair and resolve, and remember to just start the thing, and then we'll see if it was worth starting after starting. Remember that trans rights are human rights. Black lives matter. People have human rights and deserve, especially in the United States, due process, and let's keep that in mind. And until next time, please do not have a crisis unless, of course, it's me.